order. It's 6:31 p.m. on the 25th of February, 2026. Dylan, my friend, would you do me a favor and call the roll so we can establish a quorum officially?
Yes. Len,
Here.
Nancy,
Here.
Jonathan,
Here.
Richard,
Here.
Brian.
I am here. Don't sound so enthusiastic, Dylan, okay?
I'm sorry, I
Relax,
need more
man.
coffee.
Tone it down a bit, my friend. Tone it down a bit. No, I'm joking, of course. All right, we have a quorum. We are called to order. We are here, and we are going to get started with public comment period for items not on the agenda. This is the chance for folks to comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you have a comment on an agenda item, we will have individual comment periods for each of the agenda items, so you can hold your comments until then. However, if anybody would like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda, please use the raise hand function, and we would be delighted to hear from you. Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to close the public comment period, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda this evening consists of 3 items: the meeting minutes from the January 7th meeting, request to convert 3 taxi stands to 2 10-minute parking pickup and delivery zones at 278 Harvard Street. 3C, request to remove the taxi stand at 1008 Beacon Street for future expansion of blue bike stations, and request to daylight 20 feet of parking at Davis Avenue approach to the Dana Street crosswalk to improve visibility. I want to note that my father-in-law used to own the bar at 1006 Beacon Street, so I'm sure he'd have many comments if he saw this agenda item. Are there any items somebody would like to have removed? Nancy, go ahead, please.
I don't know that I necessarily want to have it removed, but I have a question about the conversion of the taxi stands to the short-term parking.
Yep.
So we did this on Beacon Street near Washington Street for taking away 1 or 2 private or parking spots as opposed to taxis. My assumption is that these taxi stands aren't really used. And so I'm not terribly concerned about them. But in terms of both the parking spots that we took away on Beacon Street and any further effort to do this when taking away private parking spots, is there any ability to monitor whether or not there is a decrease in the amount of double parking? Because we had that concern on up near Washington Street that, okay, we're going to do this, but we really didn't think it was going to make a difference, that there were just too many people double parking. So I'm just curious whether, at least particularly for the future, if we do this with parking spots as opposed to taxis, that at least we'd be able to, there's some sense that we should know whether or not this actually makes any improvement in the difficulties on those streets.
So I want to hear from folks in a second. I guess I'll just say I think this is certainly being done to support the delivery folks who are trying to work and maybe causing some congestion up there around Harvard Street. I think it's for where the Taco Bell is where this is all taking place. I can tell you, Nancy, from the work that I do in my day job and the folks that I talk to, no one has really figured out how to manage the curb like this well. There's nothing in the literature that sort of even suggests better ways to improve it, short of having someone standing there at all times or living in a surveillance state. I don't think any of us want. So I'm going to ask Dan or Sam or Dylan to weigh in here in a second, but I guess I agree with you that this is something that needs further consideration. There are no taxis currently licensed by the town of Brookline. So this isn't a detriment to the Brookline taxi industry like it may have been 10 or 15 years ago. But I do take your point. I wish there was a better thing I could point you to sort of say, let's try this. But I don't know. But with that said, Dan Martin, Dan Murphy, Dylan, anybody have any suggestions or answers for Nancy?
Yeah, we could do some observations before and after. The one on the agenda tonight is planned for a few years out, when the Blue Bike funds are available and the station's expanded, so that one's not immediate. And then we also get anecdotal information from like Washington Square, the businesses there keep track of the double parking. Is a complaint they receive numerous times from pick up and drop off, so we can get information from local businesses too, if they're keeping an eye on it.
Richard, what do you have to say, sir?
We're waiting to get back from the consultants, the Harvard Street overall plan for the repaving. And does this fit in what we're making this adjustment here, fit into those plans?
The one on Harvard Street near Beacon Approach, it is being done for those paved marking plans, because we're gonna change that to be a loading pickup and then a approach to a bike box. So to get that bike box in, we do want to change the parking at that one approach.
Okay, no, I just know we're waiting on the plans to come back, so just obviously you're figuring that, you got that accounted for and everything like that. And that it fits in. Thank you.
Okay, so on the consent agenda, does anybody from the public have a comment at this time? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Seconded.
That's seconded. Dylan, do you mind calling the roll, please, sir?
Nancy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
I'm a yes.
and Richard.
Yes.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Dylan. And thank you, Nancy, for your question, and Richard as well. We'll move on to item 4, which is updates, member updates. Does any member have an update they wish to share with the board? Nancy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so at the last meeting of the Brookline Disability Commission, they wanted me to convey to the board that they are concerned not so much with accessible parking spots being taken away as a result of the improvements to the T and down the road, the bridle path. We've been assured they're not taking accessible spots away, but they're increasingly concerned that there's no discussion about whether or not there's an adequate number of accessible spots in general, in particular in, areas along the T, places where, they would like to think that maybe we need more. So they're going to be, discussing this. And I think Jim Lee, who's here tonight, is going to be talking to Brian about what's the best way to accomplish at least a discussion as to whether or not, instead of just, when a resident wants a spot, they pretty much get it, but there's no overall plan or discussion about, are there sufficient number of spots throughout the town? Should we be increasing the number in certain places? So it's just a heads up that this is something they're concerned about.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and I appreciate what you're saying. I would be fascinated if the Disability Commission were even willing to do a little research for us and come forward with perhaps a recommendation, not necessarily of specific spots, but a ratio or something. I mean, there's literature on this, but Brookline is a little unique, especially Beacon Street. So I'll talk to Jim and I'll suggest that. And if that's something that you think is worth suggesting to the commission, I would encourage you to do that too. Thank you. Any other member updates? If not, we'll go to the DPW update, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Dan Murphy, Director of Engineering Transportation.
You
I
look
just
like you
wanted
have a
to-
halo over you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
You're very angelic tonight.
I just had a couple of these. The director's report was submitted out, and we'll submit a final one because I did find an edit. But I just want to call out three things. The first one is that Brookline was awarded a Safe Streets for All planning grant. It will support development of a townwide traffic signal policy to standardize and guide signal operations, focusing on multimodal safety. It will update the town's traffic signal inventory to identify equipment needs and prioritize future safety upgrades. And then the last thing is included is a demonstration plan for a two-way bike lane pilot. We'll basically look for places to try it out. We'll try it out and then see if it works going forward. But good news that we won the grant. Second thing is that Harvard Street Mill and Overlay project is out. We'll be out. They'll be picking up, I think, starting tomorrow. Limits of the Boston line to Kent Street, accepting this section near Pierce School, which will be included as part of their paving work because they're redoing the sidewalk in front. So we're breaking out a little piece that we're not going to do as part of this work, but that will be included as part of theirs. And then the third one was Hammond Street, just an update. That will be out to bid shortly. We're finishing that. Just one thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if I did this at the last meeting, but we basically combined it into one project. We had the signal and the bonded wearing course, but because of the degradation of the road, we decided to go with the mill and overlay. So I wanted to put everything together as one large project. So that'll be out shortly, and look forward to that. So we've got two big ones this year for those two. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the design public hearing for the school, Lincoln School, will be happening on April 8th, 2026 at 5 o'clock. So it's MassDOT's design public hearing for that safe routes to school project. And those are the three I've had. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I was excited to see the 25 RFBs in your report as well. Yep. That's exciting. Well, wow, Dan Martin, no, I guess not. Jonathan, go ahead, please, sir.
So the electric chargers that are being covered,
Yeah.
are they just going to sit like that forever? Is that the? I mean, it's not anything we've done. Obviously, it's economics. But what's the plan?
Sam, do you have anything on that? I don't know how soon they're going to remove those.
Yeah, I can hop in on this. So the GreenSpot, the company GreenSpot has evaluated the usage data and has agreed to reduce the number of chargers active to free up parking spaces for non-electric vehicles. So the goal is to bag them for 1 year and then reevaluate.
Okay.
We don't want to remove the infrastructure, but obviously EV adoption is still growing despite various tax credits that have been reduced. And recently Brookline just moved into the #2 spot in the state of Massachusetts in terms of EV adoption, I believe only behind Belmont. So we've just adjusted the number of stations to better reflect the demand.
And is the intention here? Well, first off, do we own any of that infrastructure, or does that all belong to GreenSpot?
It all belongs to GreenSpot. Was funded through Eversource Make Ready and GreenSpot's own dollars.
Okay, so all the stub outs and everything, they own all of that.
They own all of that.
They'd have to remove everything.
They would have to. Yep.
Okay.
At their cost.
Okay.
We could put meters there and begin charging them. Wendy, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Can you just remind me what for the Lincoln Street project, I thought that was all designed, that all that was left was the crosswalk. Can you just remind me what the design?
Yeah, so what we moved forward with this board was we did the pilot of the one-way of reducing it to one travel lane in one direction and the contraflow bike lane to pilot the eventual proposed final design. And so we've been working with DOT and our consultant to move to 25% design plans that reflect that layout that was approved by this board. And so Mass DOT through the Safe Routes to School construction grant will be funding the reconstruction of the road, resurfacing of the roadway, redoing the sidewalks, reinstalling the flex posts for the contraflow bike lane, and also doing a raised intersection at the entrance of the Lincoln School. So that grant is currently programmed for calendar year 2027. I could see it happening in 2028 as well. We're still waiting to hear back from DOT, but we've hit all the necessary steps. And as Dan Murphy said, I do want to clarify that it is a 6 p.m. start on April 8th for the design public hearing. You'll see it in the Boston Herald. You'll see it in the Town Administrator newsletter next month. You'll see it in Brookline News. And so that construction will hopefully happen in either the summer of 2027 or the summer of 2028.
Okay, but the design on the table at the meeting is not different from what's basically
correct.
been
Same exact layout as has been piloted, just additional safety improvements in terms of the raised intersection. I think we added additional speed bumps on the road as well. Dan Martin could confirm those, but speed bumps in addition to the raised intersection.
Speed bumps on Kennard?
On Kennard, yeah, on Kennard. It might just be one or two leading up to the, just to make sure that vehicles are going 15 miles an hour.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, of course.
Jonathan.
Yeah, just one more quick thing, and it's not a question, it's just an acknowledgement that I'm very happy to see that APS is fully implemented across the town now at all the traffic signals. So congratulations, guys. Good job.
Shout out to Dan Martin, who has been working on that for many years. So thank you, Dan.
I've been following along.
That's Dan Martin for sure.
Yeah, almost the whole
Dan.
town. We just have Brookline Village left.
Well, of the signals that can physically do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian, we do have some people that wanted to do public comment. I know Jeffrey Cook is here. He said he had trouble raising his hand. I don't know if you want to do another call out for
Let's
that.
definitely hear from those folks. So we'll reopen public comment for items not on the agenda. And Jeffrey Cook, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for my Zoom deficiencies, but I wasn't sure how to make myself known before. I had sent an email just in the last couple of days. We live on Lee Street, and we and some neighbors had submitted a traffic calming report or form. And so we just sent this email along with the speed data that we had been provided by Sam Downs, and just wanted to make the request. Just didn't know exactly how the best way was to proceed with the Transportation Board or whatever committee it might be. But just in terms of the placement or prioritization of Lee Street with respect to the traffic calming program, we're just able to read in terms of on the website as to the new program and what its priorities are. And it seems to us that Lee Street sort of falls right on top of the list. It mentions about egregious speeding, which is well documented in the speeding data. It's in terms of the recent accidents that have happened on Lee Street, the public transit that is on Lee Street. Not sure also if you're aware, but there's drag racing on Lee Street that happens on a weekly basis. The street's a mess. And I think it's been with the Transportation Board for a number of years. I remember I attended a meeting in April 2024 about bike lanes. And all the safety concerns were acknowledged then, but nothing has happened. So we just want to try to engage with respect to the community involvement. I think that was another part of the traffic calming policy, was saying about community participation and just the ways in which, if the street could be prioritized, or how else do we sort of, as a community, be able to get involved to make sure that measures are actually starting to be taken. Because it's been years, all the problems and the hazards are persistent, and we just want to figure out the best way to move forward. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm so sorry. I know you have a long agenda, but just really appreciate the few minutes.
No, Mr. Cook. So we usually don't respond, but in this case, I wanted to because of you and your wife Pam have been very, very prolific, and I appreciate that. And the staff are down an FTE right now. So one of the things that this board has tried to do for the last at least 5 years that I've been involved is figure out a better way to get to neighborhood traffic calming requests. The list is as long as my arm, and all of them are valid in their own way. Some, of course, are more valid than others because of traffic volumes, et cetera. So we have implemented new policies that over time will allow this board and the DPW transportation staff to utilize the funds that are allocated to them by the town, by town meeting, to get more neighborhood traffic calming projects done. We just started this new approach a few months ago up and around Tappan Street. We also recently implemented it, or tried to implement it, down in South Brookline, and I think there was something in the DPW report about that. So the not great answer is that yes, agreed, something that needs to be done on Lee and Clyde. The bad news is that I don't have a definitive date for you right now as to when we will get to you. Last month, we talked about a prioritization process that this board needs to go through. It's trying to find the time to do all of this stuff. We had hoped to get to that this month, but then this MBTA thing kind of happened. So we have to get to that. So while I don't have a good answer for you, I do want to invite you to please stay involved. You should come and shame us, frankly.
I don't want to do that.
No, seriously, because this
And-
is something that I think all of us on this board want to do more of.
Mm.
I think the reason most of us are on this board is to slow down cars in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And my colleagues on this board are probably sick of me hearing me say it, but that's what all of this is about. Slowing down cars on neighborhood streets. So wish I had a better answer for you, sir, but that is the reality of the situation, given the resources we have and given the length of requests.
No, thank you. And just to let you know, and I apologize if we have been prolific, but
No,
just
no,
in
it's fine.
terms of, but
Please do.
going forward, is there sort of a primary contact that you suggest that we go forward? Because we're continuing to get more community involvement on our end and want to keep the dialogue going, figuring out the ways to prioritize. Instead of, disturbing several people, is there someone in particular that you recommend as being our point of contact?
Well, you're more than welcome to continue to email me, and I'm happy to continue this conversation with you.
Okay.
In terms of, is it transportation@brookline.gov? What's the email?
Yeah, transportation@brooklinema.gov. That will send a general email and get you in contact with the best person to respond when you send there. And I think you've already used that email too. So
Yes. Okay. Great. Okay, we'll continue to do so. Thank you all very much. Again,
Oh, thank you,
apologize.
Mr.
I know you have a very busy agenda, so thank you very
Oh,
much.
no.
again.
I appreciate your advocacy. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we're going to go back to the agenda, and we are right on time. I love it when we're right on time. So this will be item 5, discussion and action items. 5A, discussion and possible action on the MBTA Beacon Street Green Line C Branch Accessibility Improvements Project, including proposed changes to parking and the removal of the Hawes Street inbound U-turn. I know the folks from the T are here. Commissioner, I don't know if you want to introduce anything. Nope. Okay, so in that case, we'll go to one of my favorite Brookline residents, Matthew Conover, to do the introductions. Take it away, please, Matt.
Thank you, Chairman Kane. I think Gwen Dunleavy is going to pull up a deck here. I'll wait for that, and then we'll get it going.
Cool. Let's make Ms. Dunleavy a co-host. Excellent.
Perfect. So good evening. Thanks to the Transportation Board for having us again. See a lot of familiar faces and names there and a couple new ones. So as Brian said, I am a Brookline resident. I'm also a member of the MBTA, where I support our capital teams in major initiatives. Gwen Dunleavy is joining me tonight. She is the Deputy Chief of Integrated Transit Programs and is leading the GLT program in charge of the construction of this particular project. Tonight, we'll cover station by stations improvements along the C Branch. The committee may recall we presented the first 2 stations last fall. That was Tappan and Inglewood. Today, we're going to share the details on the remaining stations that are part of this project. We've incorporated lessons learned from those first 2 stations to meet accessibility standards, along with minimizing disruptions to the existing environment. So currently, there are 9 inaccessible stations on the C Branch. This project will improve 6 of those by widening and raising the platforms to meet accessibility standards. We will also combine 2 of those stations into a single station. Brandon Hall and Fairbanks will become a new Brandon Hall station that will improve travel times and allow the new Type 10 to serve that location. Lastly, we will close Kent Street Station due to its proximity to Hawes Street and to further improve travel times. We've worked with town staff, elected officials, the public, technical experts to balance the trade-offs required to develop a project that provides equal access to all and minimizes the negative impacts. For those that are familiar with the 9 stations, these challenges will be very familiar, but there is a safety and traffic risk. Stations like St. Paul lack physical barriers, and it forced people to stand on the curb and into path of automotive traffic. There's a severe lack of space. Platforms are narrow, stops like Tappan cannot accommodate strollers or mobility scooters, and they create pinch points and safety hazards. There are accessibility barriers, steep slopes, and uneven surfaces make boarding treacherous, especially in the ice and rain, and it's impossible for wheelchairs and walkers to navigate those slopes on the platforms. There are obstructions, trees and poles block the paths and create physical conflicts with the new Type 10 trains. There's a lack of wayfinding. Poor signage makes it difficult for those on board the train to see what station they are at. There's also a lack of lighting. The stations that we're talking about here today are only lit by the existing street lights along Beacon Street. Our team has heard from numerous individuals who cannot access the Green Line from stations in front of their own homes due to some of these challenges. At the completion of this project, the entire C branch will be accessible, and those issues I just talked about will be addressed. Through station consolidation, closures, and platform relocations to ensure accessibility, the MBTA expects to see a 3 to 7% decrease in travel times. The project will improve wayfinding and add lighting for customers. We've set aside dedicated funding for tree replanting, which will be done under the guidance of the town arborist and result in tree lawns along the Beacon Street corridor. Importantly, we've developed major accessibility improvements, including station enhancements, which I just described. We will also add compliant pedestrian crossings, ramps, and additional accessible parking. Lastly, the project will not preclude the future bridle path, which is currently in design. I look forward to taking whenever I'm not riding the C branch. This project is a result of several years of collaboration between the MBTA and the town. Through numerous engagement efforts with the town residents, elected officials, and stakeholders, we've developed a final plan that provides significant improvements while minimizing negative impacts. The project will ensure a Green Line that is accessible for all and leaves a lasting improvement along the Beacon Street corridor. Now I'll turn it to Gwen Dunleavy, who will provide specific details on each of the stations.
Thank you, Matt. As Matt said, my name is Gwen Dunleavy. I'm the Deputy Chief of Integrated Transit Programs, overseeing the Green Line Transformation Group, which manages a holistic set of projects aimed at modernizing the Green Line, including this one. I'm sure I'm familiar to some of you. I've been delivering projects along the Green Line, including in Brookline, for the past 6 years for the MBTA, and have presented a number of times about this project, including to this board, over the past few months. As many of you already know, in order to provide safe, accessible platforms this community deserves, there will be impacts to the existing infrastructure. We've been hard at work over the past year with the town to minimize these impacts, but some are unavoidable, which we will go over in detail today. Before we dive into those details, there's a couple of points I'd like to make. First is that none of these station upgrades that we'll be discussing today result in the removal of any existing pedestrian crossings. There'll be some that are shifted slightly, many that will be upgraded, and a few new crossings of the track that will be added, but we're not closing any. The second is that we won't be removing any accessible parking spaces. There's some, again, that shift their location a little bit, but there's no change in the quantity at any station. There will be impacts to some parking areas and spaces, but none of those remove any accessible spaces. Jumping into Dean Road, our first station to look at today, we have a picture of the existing conditions. These highlights a lot of the things that Matt mentioned. You can see we have passengers here and a very thin strip of asphalt between the yellow line indicating you're too close to the train and the traffic just a couple feet behind them. Obstructions, narrow platforms, all those things that Matt talked about that make it hard to utilize the T and impossible to utilize it if you have accessibility needs. Before we review the future layout of Dean Road, I'd like to discuss how we choose platform positions. Impacts to trees, parking, travel lanes, and the efficiency of travel are all factors that we consider and worked hard to reduce with the town. But at its core, this project is an accessibility project. And one of the primary parts of making an accessible station is having accessible paths of travel to reach and utilize that station. Big part of this is related to the slope of those paths. There are maximum slopes as part of ADA requirements, and in some locations, including at Dean Road, the location we can place the platform is controlled by the slopes in that area. In this slide, we show the slope of Beacon Street around Dean Road. Graphic shows the slope in the direction parallel to Beacon Street. We're moving from west to east along Beacon Street. In this area, the slope is increasing. West of Dean Road is between 0.5% and 1.5%, and this is where we have the label for the proposed station. East of Dean, it continues to increase to about 3%, significantly more than that 2% that is allowable, which is where the existing outbound platform is located. Due to this increasing slope, we have no choice but to locate both platforms on the west side of Dean Road. This situation also occurs at a couple of other locations, St. Paul and near Fairbanks, and is a driving factor of platform locations for those stations. Start off with an overview of the existing parking at Dean Road and where the accessible parking spaces are. There are a number of parallel parking spaces that are being impacted by the widening of the platform, as well as one of the angled parking spaces that needs to be removed in the future condition to allow for a second means of egress from the platforms. Moving to our proposed condition, you can see that the travel lanes are shifted into that parking lane, so maintain both travel lanes. That accessible spots are moved. The one that was in the parallel parking space is moved to the other side of Dean Road, and the one that was just north of the platform is moved west slightly to be aligned with the accessible exit from the platform, with both platforms being to the west of Dean Road, as I described earlier. Looking at the before and after and how this changes and affects parking, the angled parking spaces, the reconfiguration, although we show one being removed, it's actually the same number. Redoing the lines, re-evening those out ends up with the same number of angled parking spaces, but you do lose 13 on-street spaces to account for the widening of that platform. Next, we can look at our proposed crossings. Here we show the crossings that exist today and highlight the crossings that will be upgraded as part of this project. Those are the ones to the west of Dean Road, including the pedestrian crossing on Beacon Street eastbound. When our final condition, those will be upgraded, as well as an additional track crossing added to the west end of the new platform. All existing crossings will be maintained. Again, doing a highlight of the before and after, we show that the two existing track crossings and all pedestrian crossings are maintained the same, but the crossings that enter the new platform or cross the tracks at the new platform are upgraded. We also show the future bridle path. This project is not working on the bridle path, but we want to demonstrate, as this was a big part of our coordination, that we're being careful not to install any new infrastructure that will be in the future path of the bridle path. We don't want to preclude the building of that by building stuff in the way that would have to be moved in the next few years when that project is moved forward. Our next station is Fairbanks Brandon Hall Consolidated Station. Here we have our existing conditions. This location is a bit different than many of the others. We don't have the issue of it being right up against traffic, but we have a steep wood slope just to the north side of the tracks. Platforms are very similar to all the rest, with that thin strip of asphalt, with the obstructions, the slopes, and the poor lighting that we have at many other stations. And this is another station that similarly needs all those same upgrades. Looking at our top-down view of the existing condition, we show a couple of spaces that will be removed for those safe means of egress from the platforms, and highlight where those accessible parking spaces are. But moving to the future condition, we can highlight that those accessible spaces are staying the same, and the the angled parking spaces will be respaced and will end up a little differently. Now, again, this is a little misleading. Our previous slide showing that we're removing two spaces for those safe means of exit from the platforms and the walkway. But reconfiguring the spaces, spacing them out evenly, actually leads to 2 additional parking spaces than what are there today. So you end up with more parking spaces when we're done than we were when we started. Looking at the existing access to the stations or station, we have 2 inaccessible crosswalks leading to stairs, which are not an accessible way to access those stations. We also have inaccessible track crossings for where both stations are currently. In our final condition, we will not only be upgrading the 2 existing track crossings, but adding an additional one where the new station platforms will be located just west of where the current Brandon Hall station is located. We'll also be adding 2 new pedestrian ramps down from where those crossings are and the stairs are located. The team worked diligently with the town to explore many different locations and configurations for these ramps, dozens of different configurations to the left of the stairs, to the right of the stairs, up top of the slope, to the bottom of the slope. Slope walkways versus ramps, different foundation types. There was a lot of work and a lot of different options that were explored here to try to find ones that would minimize the impacts to the slope. This is the final configuration that was determined that has the least impacts, specifically the trees along the slope. And in addition to those slope walkways, although it's not called out here, drainage is something that we are considering with the implementation of not only these ramps, but the small retaining wall at the back of the platform to make sure that we're not destabilizing the slope for the future. Looking at the before and after here, existing conditions, proposed conditions of these crossings, we highlight that the 2 existing inaccessible accesses from Beacon Street westbound will upgrade it to accessible access ways, and there will be an additional track crossing on top of the ones that are already there and will be upgraded. We also again show the bridle path concept to demonstrate that we are keeping that in mind and making sure we're not building in the way of that future project. Here we have a rendering of the future Fairbanks Brandon Hall Consolidated Station, showing some of the amenities. You can see in the right corner the ramp down that will be installed, the fence at the back of the platform, new signage, benches, trash cans, lighting, arrival signs, all of the great new items that we'll be putting at these stations. Our next station that we're going to discuss is Summit. This is very similar to a lot of the other stations along this corridor with the narrow platforms, with the obstructions, missing lighting, mostly relying on the city street lighting to light the platforms that we see at these other stations. Looking at the existing conditions, we highlight the 1 accessible parking space in this area and the existing angled parking, as well as you can see the current platform locations. They are significantly longer than they need to be for the trains that we run. So we will be updating that as well. In the final condition, we will be maintaining that accessible parking space. We aren't removing any parking here. When we get to the next slide, we'll show that we're actually adding a parking space here as well. And we are locating the platform just west of Summit Ave, in between Summit and Marion Street. Again, this is a design that we've worked with the town to create to limit both the impacts to parking, meaning that there are no impacts here, but also to the travel lanes. This is a busy intersection and a busy area, so we don't want to impact any of these lanes here and prevent the use of them. Looking at the before and after for parking, we highlight that the accessible parking space will stay in the same area, but due to some shifts in the existing parking spaces, realigning them, they shift out a little bit to make room for the widened platform and tree lawn. This does net enough space to fit 1 more parking space than is currently there. Looking at our crossings, we have 4 inaccessible crossings that we're highlighting here, 2 track crossings and the 2 crossings on Beacon Street westbound. All 4 of these will be upgraded with this project. No new crossings, no crossings coming away, but these 4 will be upgraded through the work that we're going to be doing here. Again, looking at the before and after, we're highlighting those same 4 crossings. that are inaccessible now and will be upgraded through this project, as well highlighting that bridle path again and showing that we are keeping that in mind for mitigating any possible conflicts. Our next station that we're going to look into is St. Paul. Here we have a view looking east. We can show the outbound platform on the left, that same narrow platform that we talk about with obstructions in the way, uneven surfaces, etc., that we have at all of these platforms. Looking at our parking impacts, there will be a number of angled parking spaces that will be impacted by this. It requires the shift of the accessible parking space that's located here. It will be shifted to the east, as well as a number of on-street parallel parking spaces that will be impacted by the widened platform. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the locations where we are constrained by the slopes in the area, kind of the opposite of what we talked about before. In this case, the slope to the west is greater than it is to the east, so both platforms must be moved to the east of St. Paul Street to get those accessible slopes. Here we have the final condition with the accessible parking space shifted and the travel lane shifted into the parking lane to allow us to maintain those two travel lanes. Looking at the before and after in this location, there is a total of 4 angled parking spaces that will be removed with this shift, as well as 7 parallel on-street parking spaces that need to be removed to make room for that wider platform. Moving on to the existing crossings, we have an existing inaccessible crossing that is going to be upgraded, and the existing crosswalks highlighted here in track crossings. With this new station, there will be 2 track crossings upgraded, an existing crosswalk that will be upgraded, and an additional track crossing to the far east of the new platform location, so we have those 2 means of egress from the platforms. Looking at our before and after, we show that we will be maintaining the existing track crossing west of St. Paul Street to give that as a way to cross the street, but that will no longer be used to access either of the platforms. The platforms will be accessed on the east of St. Paul Street, where both are located, with an upgraded accessible crossing and a new track crossing. Here we have a rendering of what the new St. Paul station might look like. Again, highlighting a lot of those features. There's an emergency call box there, benches, trash receptacles, the new raised platforms, accessible crossings, tree lawns at the back. This is going to be similar to a lot of the stations that we'll see along this corridor, how those will be laid out in the future. Last up, we have Hawes Street. Here we have a depiction of the current condition at Hawes Street. Both platforms are directly across from each other, just west of Hawes. Again, same narrow platforms, obstructions from the various poles that are along the platform side, very close to traffic and to the tracks. Now here we have a situation that was mentioned earlier, which is that U-turn lane. For any of these platforms to become accessible, they need to become wider. Accessible path, accessible platform, all of those, what is there currently is only a couple feet wide, and it is not enough to make an accessible path of travel. Widening that requires us, in most of these locations, to take a lane. Now, we usually do that with one of the parking lanes, as that is often easier to give up than one of the travel lanes. But here, there is no parking lane. There are just 3 travel lanes. So to make the extra width we need for that accessible path and accessible platform, the leftmost lane or U-turn lane, or what is currently the U-turn lane, needs to be removed. Here is a depiction of the future platform. The layout is very similar to the layout today, just with those wider accessible walkways and accessible platforms. Once we remove one of those lanes, about half the lane will go to platform or walkway width. The other half, instead of repaving it and having it not be really have any specific use, the town has asked us to use install a tree lawn there to use up the remaining few feet that would typically be part of that lane. Looking at The other option that was originally explored for this location was moving the platform east of Hawes Street, but this had some significant impacts that the town asked us to look at alternatives, which is what led to the design that we have moved forward. One of our older designs that was originally proposed for this project preliminarily involved putting that platform at the east of Hawes Street. This had some pretty significant impacts, including 8 on-street parkings that, from talking to the town, had over roughly 90% utilization during peak times, as well as a heritage oak tree, 31-inch diameter, making it one of the largest trees that would have been impacted by this project. Working with the town at their request, we progressed that alternate design, which is the one that we have been working with, that has both platforms west of Hawes Street like it is today to mitigate those impacts. Now, with the removal of that U-turn, there are some options that we work with the town to look at. For specifically, these two are ones that are available if you've already reached Hawes Street when you realize that you need to take a U-turn. One of those is to take a right on Carlton and circle around through Monmouth and Hawes. Another is to go down to Park Street, a few blocks down, and make a U-turn there. Two other possible options that could be employed by people driving down this corridor that are trying to make a U-turn would be to take a left on St. Paul Street or a right onto Ken Street to circle around to Hawes. All of these options are less than a half a mile of detour. And depending on traffic, at least at low traffic times, would only be about a 1 to 3 minute add to travel time. Using these as different metrics that we've explored for the determination of, with the town, for the determination of where the best place to locate this platform. The measured low turning counts, this is actually the lowest turning count intersection along Beacon Street, less than 50 cars an hour at peak. The need to retain those parking spaces, the desire to reduce impacts to trees, specifically that very old heritage oak, and the available alternate circulation methods the town had asked us to explore and move forward with the design to where we are today, keeping both platforms west of Hawes Street. Looking at the parking as it is, the only accessible parking street in this area is an on-street space on Beacon Street westbound, which will not be impacted by the project. There is one space that we will need to impact in creating the accessible exits from the platform. We show here again that proposed platform and that parking space that will be impacted. Looking at the before and after, again, we lose that one parking space, angled parking space, but there are no other parking impacts for this station. Looking at the existing crossings, this station is going to remain in the same place that it is now. So there won't be any new crossings here, but the 2 existing crossings will be upgraded as part of this project, as well as the both west and east side of the station. Looking at the before and after, again, we highlight those 2 upgraded crossings, as well as the bridle path along Beacon Street westbound here, making sure that we always maintain that we are not putting anything new in that path for the future project. Looking at the overall impacts to parking for the project as a whole, it'll be a total overall loss of 22 spaces. These are almost entirely parallel spaces where we need to widen those platforms at St. Paul and Dean Road. When it comes to the angled parking spaces, I think we are basically at a net neutral. There's a couple stations that get additional parking spaces. When we space everything out, there's a couple that lose 1 space, resulting in a total of 22 spaces impacted by these 5 stations. I want to thank you all for listening to my spiel about this project and appreciate your time here today. If there are any questions, we are happy to answer.
Thank you, Gwen, and thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. So folks, put your hands down. We're not quite there yet. We'll get there. I promise you, we will get there. I want to do a little contextualizing, but before that, I just want to recognize a couple of folks who are here. I want to thank Desiree Patrice. I want to thank my former colleague, Laura Brailsford, who is a superstar in this field. And I want to thank what is likely a very tired Sam Zhao from the MBTA, who has probably been shoveling snow personally for the past 3 days. And with that said, I also want to recognize Commissioner Shute and thank her for everything that she and her team have done to get the town back on its feet. And it's very much appreciated that you all do great work. And as someone who very tangentially did snow and ice, I recognize the effort, and I just wanted to recognize you for that. Okay. So this has been a long process, folks. We've been at this project for, I think, 4 years now. And I really am impressed that we've gotten here. I want to thank the T. I really want to thank Gwen Dunleavy for your incredible patience. Working with Brookline is not easy. I work with 178 cities and towns, and I can tell you nobody does it quite like us. We are intense, and I appreciate that, and it usually ends up with a better process and a better project, and I think that's true in this case. If we look at where this project was when it was first proposed to where it is today, it is remarkably better. It is remarkably better, I believe, for the T. It's remarkably better for the town. I think it'll be remarkably better for users. Real quick, I got into transportation and public service because of an incident on the C branch. I was working at the time with a bunch of folks who were in wheel mobility devices from Ireland and Northern Ireland who were here in the early 2000s as part of the Ireland Peace process. We went to a local tavern in Washington Square and trying to get back to their hotel, which at the time was the Holiday Inn at 1200 Beacon Street. And the Green Line at the time was inaccessible. Mobile lifts had to come out. They got cranked up, took forever. And there was some incidents where folks had some accidents, and it was really dehumanizing. And I sort of, at that point, realized that I needed to do a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons I got into transportation, quite frankly. I wrote my graduate school application about that incident. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is make the C branch accessible. And we're this close. We're this close. And that makes me feel really happy. And because folks deserve dignity, and because folks deserve and have a right, frankly, to access our public transportation system. And we in the town of Brookline need to do our part to make the stations the minimally accessible they need to be. And I believe that. Let's talk about what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. Okay. We're not going to talk about trees tonight. That's not within this board's purview. Our purview is parking. And in this context is parking and is crosswalks and turning lanes. So that is the limit to what we will discuss and what I will allow to be discussed. I want to take each station that's been proposed individually, starting with Dean and working our way to Hawes. We will, at each of the stations, have the board ask questions of the T folks. We'll then open it up to public comment on each particular station's proposal. At the very end, after we do all the stations, we're going to have, I have a language that includes all of these changes. So we're going to try to get everything incorporated into one language in one set of words, I guess, in one vote. At the end, we will have a vote tonight on this project, whether it's yes or no. We will take action tonight on each of these stations, and we're going to stay here until we do, because it's been 4 years, folks. This might not be perfect, but it's probably really good. So, Ms. Dunleavy, if you don't mind, could you throw that thing back up, the presentation back up, and let's go to Dean. And at this point, I just want to note the proposal for Dean is, as you can see, the reconfiguration of the angled parking spaces and the removal of the parallel spaces, I believe, in front of the church on Dean and Beacon, as well as new crosswalks. And some of you folks might remember, we heard an impassioned public comment 2 years ago from a woman who had to cross the street with a stroller every day to get her kids to daycare. And she talked about just how challenging that was because of the narrow platform. So while this is an accessibility project, it has so many more benefits. So, all right, with that said, any of my colleagues on the Transportation Board have any questions or comments or ideas with respect to the proposals for Dean Road Station? Okay, anybody seeing anybody friendly waving at me who's not raising their hand? Okay, I think we're good on this one. We'll open this up now for public comment. If anybody would like to comment on the proposed changes to the Dean Road Station, please raise your hand. No, I already said that, I think. Okay. All right, at this point, I'm gonna, I think we're good on Dean Road. We're ready to take a vote on that when we get to that point. Ms. Dunleavy, can we please go to Fairbanks and Brandon Hall? Okay, I think everyone is aware of what's being proposed here. Reconfiguring the angled parking and a net change of 2 angled spaces. We also will be, well, let's see if anybody has any questions. Anybody have any questions? Len?
Yeah, I have a question. With the senior housing being at 1550 Beacon Street, was there a possibility to have the pickup and drop off platform closer to that on-ramp instead of where it is proposed here, closer to Brandon Hall?
Unfortunately, no. This is one of the stations where the track geometry is kind of controlling where this platform has to be. It is a little steeper, closer to Fairbanks. There's also more of a curve to the track, both of which make it very difficult to make an accessible platform. And that forces us to be closer to Brandon Hall. We did put it as close to Fairbanks as we could, pulling it full all the way to the west end of the Brandon Hall access point. And this was the location that we found that was closest and also has the lowest impacts. I know we're not talking about trees today, but to trees and the various things over there, this is the most middle we could get it and still make it accessible.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comments, questions, concerns about this proposal for this particular station?
I have a question. This is Joe Maranzano. I don't know how to raise my hand.
Fire on ahead,
Can you
sir.
hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
For a number of years, I've been concerned about the westbound crossing on Brookline at Beacon at the top of the stairs at Brandon Hall. And I've been told by a number of people, including the commissioner, that it would be fixed when this T reconfiguration was done. Can you address that either now or at some later time to make sure that that crossing is safer? Right now, it is a terrible hazard to cross Beacon Street on the westbound direction coming up the stairs from Brandon Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody from the T or the town want to take that one?
Yes, we are doing that as part of this project. Specifically, we will be widening that crosswalk, making sure all the slopes, detectable warning panels, etc., are accessible. And both at Fairbanks and Brandon Hall, that will be happening, as well as adding those accessible ramps down that slope to get down to the eastbound side of Beacon Street where the tracks are and the station will be.
Well, I wasn't talking about the access. I was talking about crossing Beacon Street.
Yes.
Right.
And maybe that's not a T responsibility, but a town responsibility.
So,
Mr. Maranzano, let me take a shot here. So one of the issues that I first of all, you're 100% correct. There's been a challenge at that crossing for years. One of the issues that came up very early in this process was there was a lack of understanding as to who was responsible for what, especially with respect to the crosswalk you're referencing, as well as the flashing light that I believe is there. One of the things that we are doing as part of this process overall is clarifying who is responsible for what, such that when things like the flashing beacon you're referencing stop working, it's clear whose job it is to fix it. And that's not the case right now. And I 100% agree with you that that needs to be fixed. And I assure you it will be. I don't know right now off the top of my head who's going to take responsibility for that. But I do know that for the first time it will be written down and there will be very clear instructions as to who to call to get things replaced.
Hi, this is Bill Smith with the Department of Public
Bill,
Works. Hi,
you're
how are you,
here.
Brian?
Hi, Bill.
I just wanted to say we in DPW have been exploring replacing those aging they're actuated by a passive motion at bollards, replacing those with more conventional and new rapid flashing beacons at the conclusion of the MBTA construction. So those would be located at both Beacon westbound and eastbound at those crosswalks.
Cool.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
That would be a very big help.
Thank you, Mr.
Agreed.
Maranzano. Mr. David Trevette, go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Kane. I just wanted to add both the comments, but it's a specific location and a general comment. I want to applaud the work that's been done by the town and by the MBTA. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most important assets this town has is its walkability. And quite frankly, because walking only gets you so far, access to transit is a critical part of that. And while there are a lot of tough choices that have had to be made along this whole plan, this whole corridor, sometimes you have to make choices. People have to give up something that they've enjoyed in order to get what is going to be good for the town. I applaud this effort and I am in favor of it. I didn't say I've been chairman of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the past 8 years. I'm speaking for myself tonight, but my opinions are informed by all the work I've done as a pedestrian advocate. And so access is critical. We're providing better access for everyone, not just for people who are able-bodied and can walk, but those with mobility challenges. And I welcome that and I applaud it. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Any additional comments or questions with respect to this proposed station? Okay, seeing none, and I don't see anyone frantically waving at me. Let's go to the next one, please, Ms. Dunleavy. Okay, Summit. So what we are looking at here is reconfiguring 16 angled spots to result in 17. Is there a crosswalk here too, I believe? Yes. 2 new crosswalks. Oh no, those are tracks. Those are track crossings. Existing inaccessible crosswalks to be upgraded on Beacon Street at Summit by, yep. Okay, so there's 2 inaccessible crosswalks that will be brought up to modern standards and made accessible with ramps, which is huge. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments on this particular proposal? Is any member of Richard, go ahead, please.
It's on the left-hand turn lane. I know that we didn't have a rendition of what this station looks like from the street level. But it seems like obviously we're not having a greenscape along the westbound side. Just looking to see what the rationale was on that, where it's not having that design there. And it seems to be adjusting to the fact of the left-hand turn lane there that exists.
You got it exactly right, Richard. In this location, there is enough space in the street width to widen the platform and make it accessible, but not enough space to add that green area without taking that left-hand turn lane. It is a pretty heavily used left-hand turn lane, and it did not make sense to remove that to add that green space at this location, but the green space will be added on the south side, closer to Beacon Street eastbound, and then where the old platform is being removed, that will be some additional green space from what is currently there as well.
Did we shift the platforms west? What was the rationale there versus where it was kind of at the foot of Summit Ave?
This was
where it's currently at, in that you've moved the 2 platforms to the west.
I'll jump in on this one, Gwen, since it's my stop. I'll cheat a little bit. It's because the platform is so narrow where it currently is. There's a little bit more space as you head west on the platform, so we can widen that platform again without taking that left-hand turn lane. Also, that's a pretty heavily used commercial area at the beginning of this meeting, there was actually some discussion about curb management, and that's always been in my mind that this area is ripe for some curb management with all the different activities that occur right there at that location. So it preserves the maximum road width as it is today by leveraging the existing grass that's there.
Thank you.
And this is Bill Smith from Brookline DPW. I would add that we did explore locating that platform at the base of Summit Avenue, but found that sliding that, for example, further east, more aligned where it is today, had because it's being widened now, it had a significant impact on the parallel parking east of Summit Avenue. There would have been eliminations, and that is among our highest utilization lengths of Beacon Street. So in order to avoid that parking impact too, the station is aligned opposite between Marion and Summit, opposite the inbound station.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Matt. Richard, you good?
I'm good.
Jonathan, go ahead, please, sir.
Glenn, can you remind me, is there a center fence between the inbound and outbound tracks at the station?
There's not.
Okay.
Nowhere along the C branch.
So people who do feel like doing what they do today, likely when they cross westbound and want to get to the eastbound crosswalk at Summit, will still be able to do what they want to do today as long as no one's watching.
Even if they are watching.
Even if they are watching, but you know.
The MBTA strongly discourages that, by the way.
The MBTA strongly discourages that, as do we. Yes. Just wanted to check. Thank you.
Okay, any public comments with respect to this particular station and the proposed changes here? Any hands going up that I can't see? Am I missing anything? Okay, let's move. Oh, Wendy, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I actually have a question just across of these. I don't think I remembered seeing things about covered areas, waiting areas. Are there changes in when the stations are being shifted, are they all getting a covered waiting area, or what is the situation with that?
Shelters.
So at this phase in the project, the full platform shelters are not going to be installed. This is, I'm going to call it an interim step, although it's a kind of a long duration interim step. We do eventually envision bringing all of these platforms up to a level boarding height, similar to what is on the red and orange lines. But we can't do that until the current train fleet is decommissioned. Most of the existing trains, we have 3 types of Green Line trains currently in service, Type 7, Type 8, and Type 9. New trains coming, Type 10, pretty straightforward there. The 7s and 8s, the way the doors open is they fold out instead of moving off to the side, and that folding out action would hit the platforms if we made them a full level boarding height. So for right now, platforms are being built 8 inches above top of rail, which is the height that allows for the bridge plates on the trains to deploy and allow people with mobility devices, etc., to board with using those bridge plates, is the current step. And then the future step, which will be once all of those Type 7 and 8s are removed from service, we'll be able to lift this up to that full 14 inches and then add the typical shelters that we have, like, for instance, the new Babcock Amory stations on B Branch that were built a few years ago. We do plan on putting some bus type shelters at a lot of these platforms, similar to the shelters that you see today, only slightly smaller, so they can fit better in the tight confines we have here. But the full platform shelters will not be until that future stage, which is probably another decade out from now.
Okay. Jonathan.
Yeah. In the same regard, is there, and I don't recall, but are these areas getting the same countdown and upcoming train e-ink signs that the stations that like at Washington Square and
These
Village Corner currently have?
these stations currently have e-ink signs, and those e-ink signs will be maintained.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Richard.
One quick one, just because we didn't have the rendition of it, the fencing is there along both sides like the other stations, correct? Thank you.
It'll be a little different on the side facing Beacon Street westbound. It needs to be a little more robust, as that will be right against traffic, the back of the platform, where most of these platforms have a buffer between traffic, whether it be the angled parking or the green space that we're adding. Because there is no space for that here at Summit, it'll be slightly more robust, probably more similar again to like Babcock and Amory, but it will have that same type of protection at the back of the platform.
Hey, any additional comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, let's go to St. Paul, I believe. Okay, so the request here is removing the 7 parallel spots on St. Paul on the inbound side, I believe, and 11 angled spots to be reconfigured on the hotel side to 7. So I think the net loss is 11 here. When you add it all up, we will, of course, and I should have said this at the beginning, the current number of accessible spaces at each station will remain exactly what it is, if not be increased. So there'll be no loss of those particular spaces. Questions on this station? I guess I should point out here that this is a great example, as is the next one, of compromises that we've made that, for instance, I would love to see far side stops on all of these, but for a variety of reasons, to mitigate parking loss and mitigate tree loss and mitigate other challenges, we are compromised, which is less beneficial for transit users, but is probably better for all of us who share this town. So, this whole thing is a series of trade-offs, and here we are. So, Jonathan?
Yeah, and just because I happen to ride this one, this particular station a lot. Some of these stations, and I understand in their current form, they are not to the same elevation that the new stations will be at, but some of these stations do have some drainage issues. Are those accounted for in the design? I know you'd mentioned drainage in your presentation.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more to that, especially at the ramp crossings, right? Because if ponding occurs at any of the rail crossings, then obviously ice can form.
Yeah, all of the crossings that we'll be doing will be made sure to be built in a way that they will not be ponding. I know we have work ongoing with the town to making sure we maintain and adjust drainage structures as needed at the widened platforms. We specifically mentioned the drainage at the Fairbanks Brandon Hall stop because we are cutting into a fairly large slope. You got a lot of water coming down there that we need to manage, but it is something that is considered at all of these locations.
Yeah, and obviously at the signalized intersections, those crossings aren't just for platform crossings. Those are our rights of way sidewalk crossings as well. So that's very appreciated. Thank you.
Public comments on this proposed set of changes. When was there a crosswalk here? Am I forgetting something? Nope, never mind. There's not. Okay, let's go to Hawes. Okay, so leaving, all right, let's just go. Let's do the parking. And so the parking is, there's a loss of 1 spot, right? 14 angled spaces to be reconfigured to net 13. And that is the thing with the parking. With respect to our purview, then, Gwen, if you please would go back to the proposal. Okay, folks, who wants to start talking about Hawes Street? From the board first. Sorry, ma'am. We always do the board first, and then we'll do to the public. Richard, you go ahead, and then I'll start. Then I'll say something.
Okay. So obviously a lot of concern with losing the left hand or the U-turn aspect. The idea of this, either the eastbound platform, is there a reason why we didn't consider shifting that west? Whether it's 50 feet or 75 feet, but being able to, stagger the platform on the eastbound side, so we're able to maintain that left-hand U-turn.
So with respect to moving the platform across the street, Ms. Dunleavy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so moving the platform west does not actually maintain that left turn lane. Widening the walkway, regardless of if it's at the platform or not at the platform, widens it by a few feet. The current Beacon Street width is not wide enough for that widening of the accessible pathway and still maintaining 3 lanes. So even if the platform itself, the tree lawn, all of that is shifted west 50, 75, 100 feet, you would still need to have an accessible pathway to get to that platform. And that accessible pathway would be too wide to fit with 3 lanes adjacent to it.
Currently, right now, curb to the rail edge of the tracks, right, is 7 feet. I noticed like the Babcock ComAv new station has a platform of 6 feet wide accessibility. And then obviously you have a long path getting to the mid-block platform. I just, what type of width do you need from the edge of the tracks to the street side as far as having an accessible walkway?
I don't know the specific number off the top of my head. Maybe Matt, you can speak.
6 feet 7 inches wide. Watch me, I'll get that backwards. 7 feet 6 inches wide. Laura, well, actually, no, I believe it's 6 feet 7 inches wide is accessible for mobility device. And then we do see down in the curb area where Gwen was just talking about, there is a ramp and there has to be enough of a slope to get up to the new 8 inches off top of rail. So sometimes that area needs to be a little bit wider to accommodate a mobility device.
Yeah, no, understandable. It's just that, I think, there's space for the accessible aspect of it. All I'm asking is, can we extend that walkway in the sense of pushing the platform west and just make it a longer walkway? No different than probably like what we did over on the Summit Ave. The stations are not perfectly mirrored each way, right? One is staggered, and I'm just seeing if we could stagger the station to the west, and being able to work around and be able to leave that left-hand turn lane.
I don't think that would work. And I also think doing that would restart this entire process, and probably we'd have to go back to the tree planting folks. We'd have to start from scratch with respect to the station, no? And what we're hearing from the T folks is that we're not going to get a huge benefit from that. So I think there is a way that we can keep the left turn, but not necessarily have to have a turning lane. And I'd like to also discuss that option. But let's not forget why we're doing this. It's to make the platform wide enough so that folks that need a little extra space can use it. So Richard, I'm going to hold your concept right now. We're not dismissing it. And I just want to hear, I see Nancy has her hand raised, and I want to hear from some other board members. Nancy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I was going to ask the question, you just mentioned the possibility of losing the left turn lane, but allowing a left turn.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was that if in fact the traffic is not, there's not a lot of usage, so it's important for the people who need it, but if in fact it's not a lot of traffic, it shouldn't be, possibly would not be much of an obstacle in terms of through traffic. If it's only an occasional car that's making that left turn, obviously while they're waiting to make the left turn, that means that you don't have 2 through lanes. But if it's not heavily used,
Yeah.
maybe that would be a possible option.
Well, I kind of like at least the concept, Nancy. We can try it, and if it doesn't work, we can change it, right?
Yeah.
I also
why not?
I want to ask the T folks. So I'm going to assume here for a second, T folks, you're agnostic as to kind of where, as long as you get the length you need, the width you need, you don't care what we do with respect to that left turn. Is that accurate, or do you fundamentally care about this for the good of your project?
They are your lanes. You choose what you do with them.
Okay, cool. So I think the fundamental question we have to answer here is not will there be a left turn, but are we comfortable giving the T the width that they require to make this station accessible? Any additional comments or questions from the board?
I just had one more, Brian.
Sorry, Nancy, go ahead, please.
I just want to, it's a question. In terms of the usage of the parking spaces that would have to be removed if in fact the station were moved to the east side. I don't personally think that it's shopping or restaurants. I think it's heavily used by the medical building. I know when the T did this presentation at the Disability Commission, the assumption from the commission was that these spots were very important for users of that medical building on the corner of Hawes. Do we have any information? I know it's hard to know who's using the parking, but is there any information about that?
I don't believe we have utilization information, but Dan Martin or Dan Murphy might know.
We have utilization from recent parking counts that were done for the Bridle Path project. They do show 80-90% usage during the counts, but we don't know the users of that.
So the spots are definitely used, but we don't know where they're going to once they get out of their car. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. You good, Nancy? For now? Len, what do you have for us, sir?
What impact does having the left turn have on the wait time for people riding the T?
So I guess just to follow up on that for the T folks is there's currently a left turn or a U-turn there. Will that, if it continues, is it going to mess up your signal timing, or is that already worked out with whatever you're planning to put there?
In the calculations I mentioned where we see some time savings because of the other adjustments, the 3 to 7%, that's already factored in here with their left turns made today. If there are left turns made in the future, that does not significantly change that because we're talking fractions of a second for this one particular location.
Okay. Wendy.
I guess related to that, so if the left turn lane is removed, but left turns are allowed, then there's no, then they're crossing what in front of the T, right? Or does the T not go? I mean, the T will be going when the light is green and people are going east, and the cars are going east, right? And so
yeah,
they'll be crossing in front of cars if there's no left turn lane.
We'd have to figure out some kind of a signal with an arrow that's with a red arrow and a green light or something, and then once the T passed, it could turn green or flash yellow or something. We'd have to figure that out.
But there are places where I think right in Washington Square where there's a crossing, a turn that isn't signaled, that cars.
There's plenty of them on ComAv as well.
Okay.
Don't drive onto the train. Ignore your GPS and don't hit the train, please. Okay, any other board members have any questions at this time? Okay. I'm gonna go, Sean, I see you first. I'm gonna ask Miss Hirsch, because she raised her hand earlier first, and it looks like she's catching a train. So Allison Hirsch, if you're available, we'd love to hear from you right now. And if not, we'll come back to you. All right, we'll come back to Miss Hirsch. Sean Lynn Jones, go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Sean Lynn Jones. I'm president of the Brookline Green Space Alliance, a town meeting member from Precinct 1, and also a resident at 53 Monmouth Street, a couple of blocks from the Hawes Station. So I know the area quite well. I want to begin by very briefly saying all the things I'm very happy about. Brian sort of said them before, but people have worked really hard on this project from the town and the MBTA. Without naming them all, thank you. We appreciate that. We know this has been hard. Second, it's great that we're getting so close to ADA compliance and accessibility. This is a really good project. And third, it's kind of overlooked sometimes, but it's a great project for everyone in terms of the way these stations are going to be better, safer, easier to use, and maybe trip times will be a little bit faster. We can always hope that happens too. And you know, the compromises that have gone into this overall plan have left some of us unhappy, but it's overall a pretty good arrangement. I want to make two overall comments, and I'll say them now before I go into detail. Number one, I would hate to see the so-called original design be implemented, eliminating those 8 parking spaces, which based on my own observation are used very heavily, and people walk in both directions when they get out of their cars, for what it's worth. I stood there for an hour or two the other day in the cold. I didn't get arrested for loitering, but I could see what was going on with those 8 spaces curbside between Hawes and Carlton on Beacon. I won't say anything about the tree because we're not supposed to, but it's big and I don't think it should be removed. This is and I think, well, I could go into detail, but I think moving the platform to the east sets up some kind of squirrely features. It's not directly across from 1101 Beacon, and the crosswalks are weird. Better to have the 2 platforms directly across from each other. My second major comment is, I think you should do everything you can to find a way to keep the inbound U-turn at Hawes. And I'll immediately say that Brian already seems to have the right idea on how you might do this. There may be other ideas, but that's on the right track, no pun intended. But just a couple of other more details. I've got some kind of just suggestions and helpful comments regarding the slides, because it's important to understand how this works. Some of the other residents of the area will say more, but people use that U-turn for multiple reasons. Some people circle around the block looking for parking. Some people reverse direction on Beacon Street because they want to get to where they live in Western Cottage Farm, Amory and Powell Streets, and that general area. Some people pull out of the parking garage at the 1111 Beacon Street building, and they can't turn left because they're on Beacon Street and they can't get across the median. So they make that U-turn. I've seen that happen. There are probably some people who are just lost and forgot to take their earlier turn and take that one instead. I don't know, but just bear in mind there are a lot of reasons. It's not just a simple reversal of direction. Some people are looking to get to particular destinations. Slide 49 is kind of weird in that it indicates a U-turn route that goes up St. Paul, across Freeman, back down Amory. If you really wanted to make a U-turn, you would just do it at St. Paul because there's a protected left turn and dedicated exclusive lane for making that turn. Some people don't like that intersection, but it's the quickest way to reverse your direction on Beacon Street. What that blue route is on slide 49 is one way of getting from inbound Beacon Street to that Western Cottage Farm area without going to Hawes Street and doubling back. Whether it's a good way or not, people will debate, but that's what that's good for. There's also a route somewhat similar that Kate Silball pointed out to me, and she said she doesn't like it, but she thinks it's better. Do the U-turn at Charles, take Pleasant up to Freeman, and then come back down. The timing is about the same for these two. But I'm just pointing that out because it's kind of misleading to say that's a good U-turn option, because it's actually good for something else. I think the left turn could be maintained without the exclusive lane, either by making the left travel lane an exclusive left turn lane, or having it be a turn lane that's where you can take the left turn when there's a green arrow, but it's also for through traffic otherwise. I know there are different arguments from a traffic standpoint for each, but two things are relatively clear. Not that many people are making a left based on the counts I've seen. 40, maybe 50, maybe 25 for different estimates from staff and from a VHB study, but that's the peak hour estimate per hour. So it's not that many, and I don't think it's going to be an insurmountable problem there. One through travel lane, either de facto or actual, depending on whether you make that an exclusive left turn lane or not, may be enough for the capacity there. There are some other, interesting options that I've been talking to people about. Not have such a long left turn lane with lower capacity, since it doesn't get that much use. Shifting it a little bit to the east, extending into what's now the intersection and the grade crossing. But I think those would probably have trouble with the requirement for the walkway to be a certain width for ADA compliance, because you'd still keep the crosswalk in front of the U-turn. But that's just something else to think about. And if you really can't do this at Hawes, consider other places like Kent or Carson, but Hawes is really the optimal place for this turn, especially since you already have traffic coming out of Hawes Street and turning left, which it will continue to do so unless you make you ban it or make it one way in the other direction or something. So those are my thoughts, and I hope that this is a circle that can be squared or something like that in a way that satisfies everyone. And I'm glad to hear these ideas coming from the board about keeping the turn this way. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Sean. I doubt we'll make everybody happy. We almost never do, but we strive to make most people as happy as they can be.
There's a chance here, and if the only people who are unhappy are some traffic engineers or people at Mass DOT, I think we can live with that.
Fair. Thank you, Sean. Allison Hirsch, I'm going to try to come back to you if you'd like to speak at this time. Okay, we'll try again. Kate Silbach, go ahead, please. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. I just want a couple of things I wanted to say. The first is that I'm super supportive of these upgrades, and particularly the ADA compliance. And I know the way ADA compliance is both important to people with disabilities, and it's also really important for lots of other people. There's a kind of broad general accessibility that I think we're all going to benefit from, and I'm this long overdue and very, very happy about it. I'm a little kind of I'm not sure how to puzzle through Mr. Kane's kind of like we've already arrived at the end with all the compromises, and a decision has to be made tonight. I'm not sure whether I'm feeling a little like public comments on Welcome or doesn't have a place or isn't going to do anything, but I nonetheless am going to make it just for the following reasons. The U-turn matters. It admittedly matters to a small group, but it matters a lot. So it's not like it matters a lot to a small group. And so far as I know, and I'm fairly attentive, the neighborhood association that's affected by this was never engaged. So there have been a lot that's been engaged, and it's not the MBTA's problem. I understand that, but there is a neighborhood association on the north side of Beacon Street, and they were engaged a week ago. And by kind of neighbors. So I'm not sure. I've been trying to puzzle this out a little bit with Aaron and with some other people. It just isn't clear to me whether all of these conversations, and you could reassure me, it isn't clear to me that they've ever contemplated the problem of accessing the homes on the other side of the street. In other words, I understand that there's been a traffic count of the number of people who use the U-turn, and I understand that that has been dealt with and that was one of the trade-offs and so forth. But it just isn't clear to me who ever had a conversation about foreclosing access to the neighborhood on the north side of Beacon Street, because no one yet has cited to me when that conversation happened. And I know that there's a lot of people living on the north side of Beacon Street who are not engaged in politics, who are just residents. And they're not going to know about this until it happens. And then when it does happen, they're going to be really surprised. So let me just say finally, to understand that neighborhood on the north side of Beacon Street, you have to access it either from Boston or from Hawes or from St. Paul. The St. Paul intersection is just awful. The reason I mentioned the intersection to Sean, the going further up from Charles, is just because we don't use that St. Paul left turn, because the backup is longer than the lane, than the designated lane. It's going to be, 25, 40, 50 cars an hour longer if we remove this U-turn, because all those people are going to be at the St. Paul turn now. And it just doesn't feel safe the way cars behave, the pedestrian interaction. It's not a very safe intersection. And otherwise, it's very difficult to access this neighborhood. I mean, there is nothing. We're on the west side of Cottage Farm. This is the access road to come down Amory. You go into Worthington and you can enter Cottage Farm. Otherwise, if you live on Worthington, if you live in that inner neighborhood on Cottage Farm, or like us, you live on Amory Street, it's very difficult to access that neighborhood. And it's partly let me say, it's a long history. It's partly the fault of Boston University, who arranged to have a lot of one-ways and a lot of, restricted access in the neighborhood. But as a result, it's quite difficult to drive into Cottage Farm. And this move, for a very small number of people, removes one of the last access points. And I really would encourage you to pursue the idea of just I don't care if you use an access lane there. It doesn't seem very important to me because, again, it's a small number of people, but to let us still turn left on Hawes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And just to be clear, everyone's comments are incredibly important. And one of the reasons we're even discussing this option is because we heard it in public comment from emails we received. So while it's important that we make a decision, I guess that comes from more of we're not going to get stuck on analysis paralysis. We're going to make a decision tonight, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but we're certainly going to listen to everybody before we do it. So thank you for your comments. I'm going to try Ms. Hirsch again, Allison Hirsch. Okay. Miss Neuenfiend, go ahead, please. Sorry if I butchered your name.
That's quite all right. Totally fair American pronunciation.
I am what I am.
It's totally fair. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 1, and I appreciate, like Kate, the efforts to come into compliance with ADA. I'm a longtime disability rights advocate and have also kind of been here for 16, 17 years, raised 3 kids, pushed them in strollers, up and down the very narrow and slopey platforms. And, I think as everybody has discussed, the benefits of this will be, wide ranging and long overdue. And I appreciate all the effort. I will also, to Kate's point, I do think that we made these comments by email during earlier parts of this process. So I don't think that this is a kind of a new issue that's being raised about the U-turn access via Hawes Street to Cottage Farm. So I don't want to repeat everything that Sean and Kate have already talked about in terms of the impacts on Precinct 1, but I do think there are a few impacts that haven't been mentioned. So I just want to touch on those. So one is that, when you're running sort of a quick errand, and you're coming from Coolidge Corner, having an additional, 3 to 8 minutes, like might not sound like a lot of minutes, but if that is, on top of a 5-minute errand and that's happening multiple times a day, such as like my next door neighbors who still have 3 young kids in Brookline Public Schools, all of which are on the other side of Beacon, and they're picking them all up from hockey practice and this and that and the other thing, that adds up to a lot of minutes in the course of the day when your home is on, directly on the other side of Beacon Street. And otherwise you do have to get into multiple light cycles at St. Paul, or you have to drive into Boston. Or, the other thing that people will do is they will go up Kent Street and go through the Beach Street, Longwood Mall, which is not intended to be a high-speed pass-through, but if you have the high-speed traffic route obstructed on Beacon, that is what people will do. Is they will try to make up for time by going faster, by going that only half a mile extra, only 1 mile extra. When your entire errand was under a mile, that is doubling the route. And again, it may not be for a lot of people, but it is for a lot of the people who are the repeat users, the frequent users of that turn lane, and the people who really do not have another good option to get to their homes, which are often really just immediately across the street. I happen to be one of those people, but I also represent the precinct, and I know that is the case for many of the people, are people who are accessing Brookline High School. They're accessing the Brookline Village. They're doing their shopping in Village Corner. So it's also discouraging people from keeping their their custom in Brookline. Like if it's then easier, you're pushing all of Cottage Farm into spending their money at the Target, on ComAd, going to the drugstores there, and that's not insignificant. If you're losing entire neighborhoods spending to businesses outside of Brookline. So I just think that there are impacts that are not being captured by, just a road count of how many people per hour are using that turn lane. I am, mostly agnostic, I would say, about having a dedicated turn lane, as opposed to having an opportunity to turn from one of the remaining 2 lanes. As long as there is a turn arrow, I think that could be a viable solution. But I really do hope that this does not result in that opportunity to turn is taken away from the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. And how should I properly pronounce your name?
Noya Find.
Thank you. I'm gonna try that next time.
Thanks.
Emily Jacobson, go ahead, please.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking my public comment. I have a question. So people want to turn into Cottage Farm coming from Village Corner. Is there a reason that they can't take Portland to Hawes? I think that might be one direction. And doesn't the Transportation Board have authority over that? And I have a second question, which is that you mentioned that these are not far side stops during the last station. And I'm wondering, do these not have transit signal priority? And if they don't, are you considering implementing that? Thank you.
So I'll answer the last question, the last part first. So they do, every stop has, every signal has TSP, but not absolute TSP. So sometimes for schedule adherence or headway adherence or a variety of other reasons, it's not going to get the priority to move through. With respect to Borland, anybody on the town staff know?
It's one way on Mammoth Street, the opposite way, so you couldn't access Hawes.
Okay.
Yeah, Borland is right now. You'd have to change some one ways, but you could do the road up ahead Kent, and that's another easy route. That's just 1 block over.
Okay.
And then for TSP, that's a legacy system out there. I don't know if it's operational, but the T is engaging us on updating that system.
Hey, I helped install that. Come on, you're saying I'm old, Dan? Jesus, you helped install it too. You were out there with me. Yeah, we are old, Dan. Sorry, man. So Emily, the answer is it's a one-way, and you heard what I said on TSP. So hope we answered your questions.
Yeah, you answered my questions. I guess I'm a little concerned about considering how many people do end up on the tracks on Commonwealth Avenue. If there was a way that the town could make it so that people could do that left hand safely by changing some one ways, that would be nice.
Agreed. But I think that's beyond the scope of this particular project. So let's put that one on the to-do list, Dan, to look at those and get where you're going safe, Emily. Any additional comments, questions, concerns? Richard, if I don't see any hands, I want to come back to you. You had a sort of counter proposal. I wanted to give you some additional time to talk about. Sean, we'll get to you after we do Richard, okay? If you want to continue trying to explain your proposal.
Yeah, Dan Martin, would it be possible, either I can share my screen, or if you could, I sent you a edited edition of, just to demonstrate what a picture is 1,000 words.
Sure.
I have mine up if you want me to share.
Yeah, if you share, that way the right version comes up.
See my screen now?
You don't know.
No?
Gwen, can you take yours down maybe?
That's not mine.
Yep, we can see
Okay.
yours, Richard. Yeah.
Am I showing the pause trolley stop?
Yes.
Yeah. Move
Oh,
the
yeah,
mouse
okay.
around so we can see it.
All right, so this is currently what we're looking at on the screen. And so what I was talking about is the eastbound platform, whether it could come to the left or west, so many feet. And so I'm just, in the sense I said 50 feet, but this is what I'm thinking. Currently, the left-hand turn lane is 90 feet. And based on traffic counts, we're averaging 1 to 2 cars taking a left-hand turn on each light cycle, right? A light cycle is 90 seconds, is approximately 40 cycles per hour, right? So even at the peak time, so if we had the left-hand turn lane at 50 or 60 feet, basically holding 3 cars, and that the platform would come a little bit west, it would jeopardize what I think is 1 tree, which is about 12-inch DBH. But basically it would move the platform over, and then obviously there'd be more technical with the handicap accessible ramp that you mentioned at the crosswalk, whether that it would have to, that could be adjusted. But this is what I was proposing that we would possibly look at doing as a possible alternative.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I guess I'll just then throw my proposed alternative is that we do the T's proposal, but don't get rid of the left turn lane. Let folks take a left turn from the left hand. They can go through or take a left. So that's my proposal. You have Richard's proposal, and there's also the T's proposal. So let's go, Sean. I promised you we'd hear from you next. Can you please just briefly, please?
I will keep this brief. General point, I think you should look to an option that requires the MBTA to do the least amount, maybe zero amount of additional design work, because any additional work, any new tree losses are going to delay this project. Second, just on Emily Jacobson's point about Borland, taking Monmouth to Hawes, Carlton to Monmouth to Hawes is almost functionally equivalent to doing that. And it does mean you don't have to go down a one-way street the wrong way or change the direction of the street. I will point out that when the Beacon Street project was done almost 25 years ago, there was lots of opposition to changing the direction of Monmouth. That said, you know, the loop around Carlton, Monmouth, and Hawes would not be popular with area residents who would much prefer the U-turn to remain.
Thank you, Sean. Nancy, Wendy, and then Jonathan.
So I don't understand Richard's proposal. I thought, I mean, I thought that the Gwen's response when Richard initially discussed this was that we have to take the left turn lane because of the crosswalk, and it doesn't matter where the platform is, you still have the crosswalk where it is. So I don't understand I don't understand how that's a viable workaround.
Is that a question? Would you want someone to
I
respond?
guess so. I mean, if I'm misinterpreting what his suggestion is, I don't understand how it's viable.
That's fair. So Dan Martin, and then maybe we can go to Ms. Dunleavy.
Yeah, I think the T and the town did look at what Richard Murphy was proposing, and I think one of the easiest ways to see it is just if you look at the track, it's very narrow. So right now, when you look down this area here, you can see this ramp needs to get up to this track crossing, and this is not accessible right here. So that's one of the bigger things. In order to get this space, you need to go out into the travel lane, and there's no room here to expand the curb. There's a tree, there's parking, there's another ramp over here, and the scope of the project is limited to the medians. So shifting all this over doesn't work with the left turn lane to fit. And then coming down the tracks, there's also obstacles here. So we don't have the 6 feet here that the MBTA is looking for the path to lead in. So that's the narrow part here, and there's only 30 feet roughly from curb to curb. And then I think some of the other options about the left turn lane being removed but still allowing lefts, or if we can do a left green arrow. If Tim Rustica is able to talk on that, I know he had looked at some of these options the town had asked very early on, and I think there were some limitations on left turn arrows with the signal without a dedicated left turn lane. I don't know if you're able to speak on that, Tim, or
Yeah, are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we had looked at early on, obviously, with keeping that as a left turn lane where, there's going to result in some backups in the traffic. And then from the signal perspective, I know the MBTA generally prefers protected left turns. So then we're looking at dedicated phases, like Dan was saying, for those. And obviously, that's going to have a pretty big impact on the operations there.
Are we able to do a left turn protected arrow with a through left lane, or is that not allowed because the lanes are side by side and they have to end together?
I don't know if I can answer that question off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
But there's nothing to stop us trying. If it causes ridiculous backups, we can change it, right?
Dan, I think it would have to include some sort of, you wouldn't be able to have a red U-turn arrow with a green through. You'd have to have some sort of blank out LED sign of some sort of another that would turn on when the green arrow for the U-turn turned off. How well that can be enforced is a different question.
Yep.
And obviously the timing of that with the T going through and how that would work with the signal is another question. Because they have their own signal, which is timed with the green, and that blank out sign would have to come on in order to regulate whether or not someone could make that U-turn.
And we did request the MBTA to look at other traffic operations. So if we did have a dedicated left turn and only one through, it is possible. I do have a slide I can pull up just to give you a rough outline of what that would look like. So if we wanted to do something like this, where you'd have the left turn lane and then only one through, you'd have to merge the Beacon Street inbound traffic to one lane. And then because it's down to one lane, it does impact traffic operations. They did an analysis here looking at current conditions, and then if it was one lane, and in the morning, it does show a queue that would extend close to Kent Street, roughly 800 feet. And for comparison, this is similar to the PMQ near Lancaster, where you reduced Beacon Street to one lane. So similar length. And this is the morning peak hour. And then it is reduced in the evening, right near Borland. So to do this, you'd have to merge traffic one lane, similar to what we're trying on Boylston Street as you head towards High. You're relying on people to not cheat and go through the through lane if you're reducing pave markings, or if you do something more substantial like curb, then you have side swipe issues possibly. Yeah, so we did look at it, and there are some significant queuing that happens. It does show level of service is still a B, so traffic does move through there. It's just a lot longer now.
I mean, I'm hearing that this is a very important access point for the neighborhood. So I'm really remiss to take it away. And if it means longer queues, or as long as nothing's ridiculously unsafe, I think it's worth at least trying, because if we at least do this, the T can move forward with this project, and then the road configuration becomes our problem, as opposed to holding up this multi-million-dollar accessibility project a little bit more. So I don't know. You're not convincing me, Dan. I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. I don't disagree. But as I said earlier, we're not going to make everybody happy. What's a good compromise? Everyone's a little unhappy. So maybe that's what we'll end up with. Wendy, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
So two things. So right now there's no left on Kent Street, right?
Correct.
But since the station's being removed from there, is there room to put in a left turn lane there? It looks like, right now the eastbound T is on the westbound side of Kent, is that right?
So you're suggesting putting a left turn on the far left lane at Kent in front of the temple?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's room to actually put in a left turn lane, because is that the platform that's coming? I mean, that T station's coming out, right? So
there are catenary poles in the way. I think there is room, but you have to take away parking.
Yeah, we'd have to take away additional parking spaces in front of the temple, which I believe is pretty heavily utilized.
Okay, and then my other question is about improving St. Paul. So it sounded like people were talking about just being stuck in numerous cycles there. I mean, can the left turn phase at St. Paul be increased?
I believe the signal is optimized now for throughput on Beacon because of what happens up in Coolidge Corner. I could be mistaken. So I'm not sure we could give a lot more time to lefts without messing stuff up upstream and downstream. But Dan, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, we could look at the left turns. It is a balancing act that if you increase those left turns, the opposite Beacon and through traffic does get delayed further.
So I also just want to make sure we stay on track here again. No pun intended, like Sean Lynn Jones. What we're trying to figure out right now is what do we do at Hawes? Do we approve or recommend approving reducing what is currently 3 lanes to 2 inbound? I think we need to sort of focus on that. Let's also be aware it's now 8:30. We've been at this for an hour and a half. We got to move forward. And so while there may be a plethora of options. There's 3 on the table right now that I would ask us to try to focus on. Jonathan, and then we'll go to Richard Benka.
So I'd like to do this a bit differently.
Cool.
I want to vote on it as is.
Okay.
With a requirement of our wonderful staff to bring us options at a different meeting, because none of this stuff has been advertised to the public. Moving it to a different intersection, taking away a lane. And we're just going to end up in a situation where someone gets mad that the lane's taken away or something like that.
Well, taking away a lane was posted.
Taking away a left turn lane is posted.
The left turn lane, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not taking away a travel lane.
Fair. So I think that's a distinction without a difference, isn't it?
There's a difference.
So I agree with you, and I think we're going to definitely have to come back and look at this. So I'm fine doing it.
So I don't think anyone here is saying they're not going out and taking away the lane tomorrow. They couldn't if they tried, unless they really want to help us remove snow. Right. More power to you guys if you want to come help us remove snow. We can solve this.
Yep.
In a parallel timeline. We're in a do loop tonight right now. We could do this all night.
Yep.
And not get to an answer.
Agreed.
Let's bring it back with well thought out ideas rather than throwing spaghetti at a wall. And I'm out of cliches.
Agreed. Mr. Benka, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. And in light of those last comments, I will not say a lot. Thank you very much for taking this seriously. I just wanted to add one point. This is not just a question of access to the neighborhood. 1101 Beacon Street is a large active medical office building. And that U-turn lane, that is on the corner of Hawes and Beacon eastbound. And that U-turn opportunity at Hawes going eastbound to westbound provides access to parking along the westbound side of Beacon Street for patients in that medical office building. So I would urge you, as you go forward with this, to take that into account as well. I think that is an issue that is a serious issue to a lot of medical patients. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean Lynn Jones, you have the last word.
I was going to say you should recognize Dick Benka, because I thought he would make a point that I'd also made, and I'd love to hear it made again. But I will make one point, because he just made the point I made earlier regarding St. Paul and the timing of that light. Even if we weren't talking about the MBTA project, Hawes Street, or anything related, the timing is a problem. As a pedestrian, when you're crossing St. Paul on the Beacon Street sidewalk on the north side, 2 or 3 cars come through well after the walk sign has turned, and you're standing in the middle of St. Paul. They're looking out for trolleys or watching their cell phones or something, and you're dodging them, or you wait until and you miss the light cycle. But that needs to be changed regardless. And I think it would be good for the traffic, as was just mentioned too.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Transportation Board, here we are. We're going to now take a series of votes with respect to each station. We're going to get to Hawes last. And then when we get to Hawes, we can talk about what the heck we want to do. I am going to put some language up on the screen that that was given to me by town council. So, can folks see this language? I'll try to make it bigger. I'm going to read this. I don't know how to make this bigger.
Try pressing Control and scrolling in.
I don't have a scroll on my stupid mouse. I just got a new one.
Yeah, it's tough.
Control plus. Control plus.
There you go.
We'll zoom in.
Plus.
Don't tell us you don't have a plus, Brad.
Well done. Well done. I know, seriously. All right. Well, that kind of works. All right. So the first thing we have to do, the first thing we're asked to do which is the highlighted bit, is vote to express to the select board the transportation board's support of the MBTA C Branch Accessibility Improvements Project. That basically means we are endorsing the station consolidation and all of the other things that go along with it. Specifically, the vote language is by station. So I'm going to read this, and then we're going to discuss Hawes Street one more time at the end from the board only. Okay? So this is from Town Council. With respect to Beacon Street at Dean Road and Corey Road, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at Beacon Street, Dean Road, Corey Road Station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications with a net parking change of minus 13 parking spaces, as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Upgrade Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. With respect to Beacon Street at Fairbanks, Brandon Hall, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at Beacon Street, Fairbanks, Brandon Hall Station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications with a net parking change of +2 spaces as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Upgrade Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. With respect to Beacon Street at Summit Ave, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at the Beacon Street Summit Ave Station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications with a net parking change of +1 parking spaces as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Upgrade Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. With respect to Beacon Street at St. Paul Street, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at the Beacon Street St. Paul Street Station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications with a net change of -11 parking spaces, as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. With respect to Beacon Street, all right, you know what? We're going to pause there. Can we vote on those changes? And we're going to, can we vote on those changes? Would anybody like to move that language? And we'll do Hawes separately.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Can someone call the roll, please?
Richard,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Brian.
I'm a yes. Okay, so T, you got those. All right, Beacon Street at Hawes Street. So Jonathan, I'm going to take your advice and we'll put what is the T's proposal up. And then we can have a discussion, okay?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'll even move it.
With respect to Beacon Street at Hawes Street, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at the Beacon Street Hawes Street Station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications and the removal of the Beacon Street eastbound U-turn with a net parking change of -1 parking spaces as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Upgrade Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. Jonathan, you want to move that?
So before I do, just to be clear, so we would be removing it now, and then we would have to add it back in based on the way the language is written, correct?
Or we can, before anyone moves it, we can change it. So we can take out the.
Okay, so we do a revision. Okay, gotcha.
So we can take out and removal of the Beacon Street eastbound U-turn.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what, so this, we can take out this language right here, the highlighted bit. Can everybody see that?
we do a revised action.
Well, no one's moved this yet, so we're still.
But we're taking an action here, so.
But no one's moved it yet. So what we're figuring out is what the motion is going to be. So it sounds to me like the motion you want to make is Beacon Hawes parking modifications with the net removal of -1 parking spaces as shown in the presentation.
Correct.
Okay, would you like to move that?
So moved.
Is there a second to Jonathan's motion?
Second.
any discussion or amendments at this time?
Yeah, I have a
Yes.
question.
Wendy, go ahead, please.
So the idea is we send this like this, and I mean, are we basically just putting this back into the hands of the select board to decide, or we are?
Nope.
What's
So
that?
we have jurisdiction over the parking and the turn and the crosswalks. What we don't have jurisdiction over is the grant of location, which the select board will take up, I think, next week. They've also asked us to weigh in on the project overall, and I see the commissioner's hand is up, so I'm going to turn to her right now.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair. I think I was just looking for a clarification, actually, so that this vote is approving, question mark, the MBTA's plan as is, and is then asking the staff to work with the transportation board on what the traffic rules will be for the 2 remaining lanes. Is that correct?
Correct.
No.
Not if
No.
we remove the
That's-
language.
That's sort of what I heard. I thought Jonathan was saying.
That's what I was trying to do.
But you want to keep, you want to get rid of the U-turn?
Brian, if I may,
There's,
Hold on a second. Jonathan, you made the motion to keep,
we want to move the T's plan forward, correct? And we want to revisit the cross section of the roadway for eastbound.
okay, but the motion that you made,
In order to do that, we need to remove the turn tonight, correct?
well, that's one way to do it. So the motion you made, here, I'm going to put this language up on the screen, and folks can tell me if I'm wrong. I think this.
That's why I
is-
was asking if we had to do a revised motion at a later date.
Okay, so I believe that this is what's currently on the table. I'm going to read it. Should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at the Beacon Street / Hawes Street station, the transportation board approves the parking modifications.
I mean, this is the right thing to do because
Modifications.
if we cannot come to an agreement otherwise, let's say there is no other viable option. The transportation staff go through MUTCD and flip it upside down and rub a lemon on it and no secret words pop up.
Just to be clear, I just want to be clear. I
There
believe
has
that
to be a way to do the station.
this
right?
language that is on the screen is what I believe is on the table right now. Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
What this motion does, all it does at Hawes Street is approve the parking removal. It does nothing. It takes no action on the turn. Which means the MBTA's proposal.
That's not what I understood, Jonathan, to
Yeah,
be.
me neither.
Okay. So that's why we're doing this. So, okay. Jonathan,
Maybe before you could add language that we must return before construction to present options for preserving the left turn access.
okay, so Jonathan, it's your
One-
motion.
Yeah, one of which, Dan, would have to be the no build as well.
All right, so you gotta give us some
Because-
words here, Jonathan, because where do you want?
Yeah, I
where do
was
you wanna
trying
put
to
that in?
before, yeah.
Wasn't he just
The-
moving the language as it was originally written?
That would require us to come back and revise the motion later, which is not really what we want to do, and that's what I was asking
don't-
about.
No, not necessarily later, because it would just be a new consideration.
Superseding motion, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Can I,
But for that time being, in the month or 2 months that pass, the left turn lane would be able to be removed by the T once they start their construction.
okay.
They will not be doing any construction in the next 2 months because, well, it's kind of impossible. But
so can I clarify something?
Yes.
So what's not on the table is the idea that we keep 3 lanes there. right? Is that what you're saying, Jonathan?
I don't think that's physically possible.
That's not physically possible. So we're not saying anything about allowing a U-turn or a left turn. We are just saying that the lane is going to be removed.
We could say with a removal of one of the 3 lanes at the eastbound intersection approach. And we can go from there. There will definitely be a lane removed.
U-turn
Right.
lane.
So can
Just say add lane after U-turn. Removal of the eastbound U-turn lane.
lane.
Yeah, that works.
Right. And then if you want, we can add language that we will revisit the idea of whether we allow a U-turn there.
And instruct the transportation staff to provide options for new cross section of eastbound Beacon Street at Hawes.
What'd you say? Instructs this
Transportation staff to provide new cross section options for eastbound Beacon Street at Hawes. Or lane arrangement options, whichever you prefer. If you want something less engineering-y.
within 90 days, whatever, 30, 60 days, what do we say?
I'm gonna give Dan the option of choosing the days.
Could we, which Dan?
Go ahead, Dan Martin.
Both.
Go ahead, Dan Martin.
Maybe instead of a time limit, we could just set it before construction, before 100% design.
That seems reasonable. Time it with the project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds an awful like on how we do school projects.
I think they might have notice proceed with design build before project 100%. So
For
submittal.
project completion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Richard, I see your hand. We're going to get to you 1 second. Just to be clear, I'm going to read this again. With respect to Beacon Street and Hawes Street, should the select board grant an amended location to the MBTA at the Beacon Street / Hawes Street station, the Transportation Board approves the parking modifications and removal of the Beacon Street eastbound U-turn lane with a net parking change of -1 parking spaces as shown in the Brookline Transportation Board MBTA Green Line Accessibility Upgrade Project presentation dated February 25th, 2026. Furthermore, the Transportation Board instructs the DPW transportation staff to provide new cross-section lane arrangement options before project completion.
For eastbound Beacon Street at Hawes.
Or for a U-turn solution.
Oh, 1 second. Okay. Richard, what would you say? I couldn't hear you.
I would say, I would be favor in voting yes, as the station is, with the intent of creating a U-turn solution for this neighborhood.
It's a very long motion.
Something like that?
Yeah. You throw an R in U-turn.
Yeah.
Well,
No one's judging you. No one's judging you type right now, Ryan.
No, not.
I think you want to say, I think you have to say consider.
Yeah.
We're not voting that there's going to be, we're voting that we're going to consider.
I agree, Nancy. It's
But I mean, if we end up eliminating,
it's our intent to find a way. It can't be confirmed at this time.
I mean, from St. Paul, if you get into the other side of Beacon Street, you have to drive 1 mile up and down Beacon
Richard,
Street.
Richard, we understand. We understand. We're not. We will do this conversation next time.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Here we are. Democracy, ain't it great? We're watching the sausage being made tonight, folks. Okay. Is everybody on the Transportation Board clear on what is being moved. And Jonathan, I assume you are still moving this.
Sure.
Okay,
That's an official response, right?
so this is moved by Jonathan. Is there a second? And then we're gonna have a discussion.
Second.
Seconded by Nancy. Discussion. Richard, at this point, would you like to offer an amendment or anything?
As long as we have the intent of a U-turn solution at following meetings before construction.
It's certainly my intent to retain a U-turn there if we at all can.
Yep.
Okay, Len, how you doing on this?
It's fine with me.
Clear? It's as clear as mud? All right, it's been moved by Jonathan, seconded by Nancy. Dylan, can you call the roll, please?
Richard,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes, we have one more vote to take. Is there a motion to express to the Select Board the Transportation Board's support for the MBTA's C Branch Accessibility Improvements Project? This is something Town Council also asked us to take action on.
Was that a sentence?
Is there a motion that the Transportation Board express its support to the Select Board for the MBTA C Branch Accessibility Improvement Project?
So moved.
My brain is tired. All right, hold on a second.
So just broad support.
They asked us to weigh in.
Are we writing a letter or are we just telling them?
We'll just tell them.
All right. Usually these things say like to authorize you to write a letter of support or something.
Well, they're voting on it. Okay, we can do that. Okay.
Mhm.
The chair of the T-Board is authorized to write a letter of support expressing the T-Board's support for the MBTA's C Branch Accessibility Improvement Project. Something like that.
Something like that.
Okay. All right. Does somebody want to move this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Dylan, call the roll, please.
Richard,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes. Okay.
And thank you, MBTA.
Thank you, MBTA.
Thank you, Transportation Board.
Fun.
Thank you.
I hope we never have to see you. No, I'm joking. It's been fun, folks. Thanks.
Gwen, you feel the love, right?
Absolutely. I would never say I never want to see this committee again and be presenting to you again.
We
Brian says he's,
look forward to the ribbon cutting day.
yeah. Yeah, Brian says he's buying drinks, so.
Damn straight.
We'll see you at that ribbon cutting.
Washington Square, he has a water hole there, I think.
One or two. All right. Thank you. 5-minute break, folks. Take a
Brian, at this time I need to cut out.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
It's 8:30. Jesus Christ, it's 8:50. See you at 9 o'clock. If everyone can try to come back, please. Thank you. So we're only an hour and 5 minutes behind schedule, guys. We're doing well.
You expected. Come on, did you think that was going to be short?
All right, do we have a quorum? Let's see, Richard, me, 2, Wendy's 3. Len is 4. Okay, we're gonna resume. The next item, 5B, is the presentation of the Brookline Comprehensive Plan. Who has this item?
Rick Collins.
Hi there, everyone.
Hi,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, great. Before I share my screen, I see some new faces. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Jake Collins. I'm a community planner in the town's planning department, and I'm primarily responsible for the comprehensive plan update. Would
So
it be
Jake,
possible? Yes.
Just let me beg you for brevity and for focusing on stuff within this board's purview. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Very brief presentation. Do I have the ability to share my screen, or would someone on staff be able to share for me? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Jake, is it the same presentation for boards and commissions that I have?
It is. It's in the agenda packet. Yes.
I can bring up what I have. Give me a sec.
Can someone make Jake a co-host, please? While we're doing that.
Okay. Okay. It looks like I can share my screen now. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, you got it.
Good, Richard. Thank you.
So I'm going to override yours, Richard. Okay.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me come tonight. The purpose of this presentation is twofold. One is to provide a very brief update on the planning process and just to explain how you can participate very quickly. Okay, so I was going to start off by saying what we've done. So as you may be aware, we are 18 months into the comprehensive planning process. I am not going to go through this line by line. It's in the agenda packet if you want to take a deeper look, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. The key facts here is that it sets a 15-year roadmap for the future, develops policies that help guide town departments, provide the framework to guide future zoning changes. I always like to include that because I've received plenty of questions asking if this is a rezoning effort. It is not. And then act as a reference for the town for prioritizing future investment. Kind of goes back to number 2, but it's both monetary and also other resources. So we anticipate that the plan will be completed in July of this year. And it requires approval by the select board and the planning board. So earlier this year, or last year, I guess, rather, the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, of which Richard Murphy is a member, developed these plan themes. As you see, theme number 6, which will eventually be its own kind of standalone chapter, that'll be cross-listed in probably all these areas, is mobility and accessibility. So there is a big component of the plan, and I expect that we will need to hear from you at least once and probably a couple times throughout the remainder of the process. So right now we're in our winter engagement, and we're just really trying to be proactive. We are at the point where we're getting ready to draft the plan, and we want to make sure that we hear from those who live, work, and play in Brookline before the pen hits the paper. Make sure that we're meeting the needs of everyone or as many people as we can. So we have 4 kind of distinct activities. One's a vision statement review. This was drafted by the steering committee. We just want to see if it resonates with you as a community member. The share your priorities across plan themes, those are the 6 areas that I showed a few slides ago. So mobility and accessibility is included. Opinion on future housing and commercial growth. This is relatively simple. It's just kind of place where you think we should be on the line, and then indicate your preferred types and locations for residential development. It's kind of an in-depth activity. People have found it fun. Others, I'm sure, have found it tedious, but it's a really great opportunity to kind of take a look at not only your neighborhood and what you want to see there, but also areas around town that you think could benefit from development or not. So there are a few ways to get involved. We had a workshop on February 9th. It was very well attended. Next, you can take the online survey, which closes on the 2nd, and that is kind of composed of all 4 of those activities I mentioned above. The last one I want to draw to your attention is the meeting in a box. This has all the same activities as the online survey, but it allows you to have kind of small group discussions with your communities. You know, you could provide feedback together and make sure that we really hear what your, we get to the heart of your needs, basically. And we have just extended the deadline for that until the 9th, which is a week from, I guess, next Monday. If you have any interest in that, all the materials can be found online, or feel free to reach out to me. This is kind of the most important part that I want to bring to you. If you can't contribute now, don't worry, it will not be your last chance. We will be returning this spring to kind of run recommendations and strategies that impact the work you do by you. So early in the process, actually in the pre-planning process, we provided the consultant team with basically every land use study that was available to us that the town has undertaken in the past 5-10 years. So they are drawing from that. It will go through a department review. It will be reviewed by the steering committee. And then, of course, you will have the opportunity to comment and before it goes before the boards that will ultimately approve it. And so that's really the end of my kind of spiel. In the last slide, I put some helpful links. So if you're interested in hosting a meeting in a box, want to see recordings of view recordings of past meetings, or if you just want to learn more, you can use the links here. I'm not sure how much time you want to devote to this, but I'm happy to answer any brief questions, time permitting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Richard, I believe you're our representative on this. Would you like to say a few words?
Just the survey is ending on the 2nd of March is the big thing to kind of take away. Jake has the link in there. It's also on the town website. And there was a alert sent out today. Probably thank you to the commissioner on that. That we broadcasted it out, and so it was on the TMA listserv. And I passed it along to like the South Brookline listserv, and basically just try to circulate and just emphasize to people that we know that live in Brookline and work in Brookline, to take the survey. Data helps, right?
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for representing us. Wendy, go ahead, please.
I'm just curious how many responses you've had so far. Do you know offhand?
Yes. So I believe we hit 500 survey responses today. And then I believe we have another 70 from our workshop, and we have not yet calculated how many responses from the meeting in a box, but my guess would be somewhere between 20 to 30. So we're at about 600 responses overall.
Great. Any additional questions for Jay Collins? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Appreciate
Thanks,
your time.
Thank you for your time.
We're going to move on. And of course, I just closed my agenda. I think, are we doing the BAC nomination next? Okay, do you have that one, Dan?
I think Dylan's going to present that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's discussion and action on the reappointment of Janice Morris to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Okay.
If David Trevette, Chair,
David,
wants to say anything.
David, we always appreciate hearing from you. And again, I can't say it enough. Thank you for all you do. Please go ahead.
I was simply going to say that Janice has been a very excellent member of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I supplied written stuff to the board. I assume that may be in your meeting materials. But she's contributed well during meetings. She contributed well outside of meetings. She's done observations. She's a frequent contributor of issues to Brook Online. She has good ideas, and I appreciate all of that. And so I heartily recommend her being reappointed to the committee. Thank you.
Can't say higher praise than that. Coming from you, David, that's all I need to hear. Is there a motion to reappoint Janice Morris to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee for, I assume, a 3-year term?
So moved.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dylan, you want to do it again?
Yes. Richard.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Wendy.
Yes.
Jonathan is absent. Nancy.
Yes.
And Brian.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank
David.
you all.
and Thank you, Janice Morris.
Thank you, David.
We'll move on to 5D. Chestnut Hill Avenue, summary of meetings, Boston status, current funding, and next steps on the roadway project.
All right, that's mine. Hate to go last at 9:13, but I'll be quick and we'll get through this. Everybody, I think most people know me, Dan Murphy, Director of Engineering and Transportation. So tonight we just wanted to bring to the board information where we are with Chestnut Hill Ave, efforts taken to date, and the goal is really to discuss, for you to discuss at the board level, and we'd like to get some guidance on moving forward. As you all are probably well aware, there's been several meetings over the past year, but this is the first time we've brought this to the board. So slide 2, you got it there. Go ahead. General information about the about Chestnut Hill Ave. Project limits are Route 9 in Boston City on the north. This shows the cross section. The overall pavement width is 38 to 40 feet. As you can see on this, the lanes are very wide, 15 to 16 feet. Interstate lanes are normally 12 feet. And the 4 to 4.5 foot grass strips on either side of the 5 foot sidewalk. Next slide. This slide gives daily trips for people, whether they're walking, biking, or driving. This is Chestnut Hill Ave is one of the busiest one-lane in each direction streets in Brookline for vehicular traffic. As you can see from streetlight data, walk and bike traffic is highest near the reservoir station, as you would expect, and the highest vehicular volume is nearest Route 9. Next slide. This graphic shows signage, traffic signals, and bus stops along Chestnut Hill Ave. There are 2 sets of bus stops on the southern half, near Buckminster and Channing Elliott, and at Reservoir Station in Boston. Parking is prohibited only near the station on the eastern side of Chestnut Hill Ave and is restricted by permit parking by a sign near Willard Road. The speed limit is posted at 25 and 30. Next slide. This is just a summary of the meetings. As you can see, we've had 4 meetings. The first one was with BAC back in March. Neighborhood meeting at Town Hall in May. Another meeting with BAC shortly thereafter. And then we had the neighborhood meeting at the Hayes School in November. So we're here tonight with the Transportation Board. Okay, next up. This just basically at the first meeting, there was just one concept presented. It was the bike protected lanes with flex posts. That was presented at the first BAC meeting where the neighborhood came. The second one was a neighborhood meeting at Town Hall, and we added 3 other alternatives. There was a buffered basically shoulders. There was basically one side with a flex post protected, the other side with just a lane adjacent to traffic, and then the parking on one side. And then the third alternative had parking switching back and forth to 2 different sides. And then the fourth one was the one that was initially presented. All right. This was the 12th meeting. So again, all 4 were presented to the BAC for feedback. And I know they provided written opinion back to the T-board. Next slide. Okay, so this was the neighborhood meeting and we added one alternative to that, and it was after we talked to Peter Firth. He had an idea that he'd seen in Netherlands, where you could have the parking partly on the shoulder on the inside, and that was another option presented. Does option E. Okay, next up, I did want to just share with you. I know we presented this at this meeting, at the neighborhood meeting at Hayes, and this just showed. Let's see, make sure I get it here. This just showed that we did a butter survey. 60 abutters were solicited. About a third responded. Most said there was a medium curb parking use, and 2/3 said their driveway could not meet all of their parking needs. Although 63% said a family member owned a bike, more than 3/4 said they would not use Chestnut Hill Ave, even if improved. That's just from the summary. Okay, next. We did look at pedestrian improvements. As part of this, we did a first cut through. And this shows basically pedestrian improvements on the northern end Reservoir Station and Clinton Road. The next slide, please. We had a couple of proposed pedestrian refuge islands near Buckminster and Hyslop. And then the next one is we had one at Acres. But the Boston transition. So we have been in touch with folks in Boston. There's some uncertainty about what their plan is. The T is looking to do some work on the tracks. They have looked at some future improvements, but they're really not committal on what they want to do yet. There's no real date set on that. We actually reached out just today and yesterday to just get that confirmed. So as right now, there's 2 lanes going in and out of Boston, and as of right now, that's the way it's going to stay for a little while. But we're waiting to obviously talk to them in the future as we move forward. And then the last thing I'll say is my first thoughts is that the lanes are really, really wide. So if we do anything, we got to narrow the lanes. Buffers would definitely be a big improvement. Curious to hear all thoughts from what folks want to do. Our spring 2026 paving is set. Our first part of the year, we could look at something for the fall, or maybe look at Chestnut Hill Ave as a 2027 project. As you mentioned earlier, we did present an approach to setting priorities in a soon to be held meeting, and we can include this as our priorities discussion, obviously, at an upcoming meeting. And that's really everything I have in a nutshell, and just wanted to share this with the board to see if they had any thoughts. I know it's late, but thank you for your time.
What's the condition of the pavement out there now, Dan?
It's I guess I would say one thing I was looking at. It's really a mill and overlay type improvement, but we did do a bonded wearing course on a section of Beacon, which was similar. The westernmost section was close, but this is really most likely a mill and overlay job.
Okay. And what was the genesis of this whole project?
Well, it came up on our pavement management plan as one of the roads that needed work. So really it was part of that, and then we brought it forward and we talked about it back. And I know that it's in the Green Networks plan. This is one of the streets that's in there. So it kind of took on review in that regard.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I mean, just I'll start. I'll give my opinion. So I went out and I hosted the neighborhood meeting at the Hayes School. Heard from a lot of neighbors. We've heard from a lot of folks on this particular project. To me, I don't think it makes a heck of a lot of sense for us to do anything too dramatic until we know what Boston's going to do, because we risk then having to kind of tear it all up again. I would support at this point repaving it, restriping it, maybe narrowing it through striping. I wouldn't mind doing some of the pedestrian refuge proposals that you showed, Dan. But otherwise, I just think we need to kind of wait to make sure that the transition from the city is clear. At least that to me makes sense. If we could prioritize this for a 27 project, I think that would be good. Maybe by then the city will know what they're doing. but that's how I feel. But I want to hear from my colleagues on the transportation board. Anybody have any thoughts? Wendy, your hand was up first.
So first, so the Boston part is a very small part of this long street, right? Why wait? Why wait for Boston? I mean, why are you so concerned about Boston?
I would hate for Boston to do either a 2-lane option that becomes a 1-lane option where we are without any thought on that, or if we put a pedestrian thing in there, or the opposite, if they go to 1 and we have wider lanes. I think it makes much more sense to coordinate this with our fellow street owner.
But for
Just
most of it, it's already 1 lane each way, right?
Yeah, it's the transitions that I'm a little concerned about.
And I'm also curious, I can't remember if there was ever discussion. I know there was a lot of back and forth about the bike lanes and bike lane designs. Did we ever talk about sidewalk level bike lane?
So there's an awful lot of neighborhood opposition to anything like that. So it's been discussed, but there's nothing proposed at the moment. I think what staff is looking for is guidance from us on sort of an approach. I think we need to give them that guidance. At the very least, what I'm suggesting is we kind of tighten it up through striping. It'll be very wide shoulders that will be a de facto bike lane, which, although is not ideal, certainly it's probably an improvement on what's out there now. But again, that's just my opinion. So anything we do on this, we're going to have to go through a much broader public process, though. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, I'm in agreement as far as the Boston piece. I think it's actually kind of critical because not only the vehicle lanes, but also the bike infrastructure that they choose. We were talking about trying to mirror the same type of setup as a good, strong possibility. I would hate the fact of repaving it, restriping it, and then actually consider changing it or locking us into adjustments that we can't make, whether we put in refuge islands or what have you. So I'd rather have that big discussion as far as what the whole layout is going to be, that we're in agreement before we do anything at all.
Len, did I see your hand up earlier? Did you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible that Boston would follow our lead and mirror with our design?
No.
And do we usually wait for them to act on the borders?
Not really, but in this case, they are theoretically advancing a project. So Dan, I'll let you speak to that.
I was going to defer. I don't have a lot of history as far as sequence of our following their lead, but certainly I'd like to at least be on the same page, and we all kind of have an understanding of where we're going to go with the whole corridor, including Boston. That's my take. I hate to do something. Then I guess they could follow our lead, but I think it makes sense to really decide together.
Mr. Lassie, I see your hand. We'll get to you in a second once we hear from the rest of the board. Nancy, I don't know if you had a thought on this or anything.
No, I think I'm inclined to follow your lead and wait, like do some minimal work and then wait and coordinate the plan. I don't have any strong views. I think it's very complicated. It's hard to have a view without having much more detail in terms of like that quick presentation of the different alternatives. I wouldn't know where to begin in terms of trying to assess them without a much more detailed presentation and ability to discuss, which frankly, at this hour, I don't think I could process even if you were willing to entertain it. I'm not sure I could to handle that right now.
Fair.
I'll apologize for going so quickly, but I agree. This is the first time some of you are seeing this, so certainly we can take the time and go through the alternatives as we understand what Boston's doing, and we can coordinate and come up with a future plan.
All right, so let's hear from the public. So if you remember, would like to make a comment on this item, please use the raise hand function. Mr. Lassie, go ahead, please.
Hey, thanks, Joe. I'm a big supporter of the safety improvements that have been proposed here, including the bike lanes. But very important is the pedestrian safety improvements there. In particular, the pedestrian islands and physically narrowing the crossings there. One of the big safety issues is around the T station, and specifically the forming of two travel lanes in where there is actually only one. And one suggestion I've made to hopefully alleviate the issues with meshing with Boston is to move the mid-block crosswalk going to the Cleveland Circle stop, or sorry, the Reservoir stop, back to Clinton Road. That's a more direct route, which is actually the route that pedestrians normally take. But B, if you move that back there, you could have two actual travel lanes going into Boston, and still maintain a physically narrowed single lane going through the crosswalk.
Thank you. Amanda Zimmerman, go ahead, please.
Yes. Sorry, can you hear me?
Also a halo effect, Amanda. You're very saintly tonight.
Always good. Amanda Zimmerman, former member of Bike Advisory Committee, current town meeting member. And I know I won't dive into too much of the details. The only thing I wanted to highlight is if you're talking about doing some minor changes before making some of the more major changes that those of us who bike around town would like to see happen. I just wanted to flag that a lot of times we would get supporters for bike lanes from people who don't bike but are concerned about pedestrian safety. And so if you are talking about striping to narrow lanes, especially at intersections when pedestrians cross, you could think of putting 3 or 4 flex posts to make sure that they don't turn those into 2 travel lanes to try to get around a stopped car stopping for pedestrians. So I think there are some minor things you could do that would be not so controversial, that it's definitely worth doing if you're going to repave it all. Thank you.
Agreed. We call them no regrets investments. Yes. Kevin McKenzie, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Kevin McKenzie. I live on Strathmore Road, and I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 13. I'm part of the Precinct 13 town meeting delegation that wrote to you earlier today. The full delegation actually submitted comment to you. I will spare you because of the hour instead of reread it to you. But the full delegation, all 15 of us are in full support. It is important to note, in my opinion, right, separately from the group, I just want to speak for me right now, that in the last 3 election cycles, our group has secured all 5 seats each year. Which to me indicates that there is a political support in Precinct 13, which shares jurisdiction, quote unquote, jurisdiction over Chestnut Hill Avenue for such projects, given that we have run on campaigning for safer streets for all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Thank you for your time and for the late hours.
Thanks for all you do, volunteering for Brookline. Emily Jacobson, go ahead, please.
I think
Emily, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. You know what, Emily, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay? Now?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay. I am the chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, although I'm speaking just for myself and as an advocate this evening. I'd like to point out that in addition to being in the Green Routes Plan, I think more importantly, the stretch of road is in the Complete Streets Plan. It's also in the Vision Zero plan, both of which have been adopted by the select board. And I would like to urge you to not put this off too much. A decision to restripe the road is not a decision not to act. It isn't a decision to act and maintain the status quo, which is an unsafe street, which we have known has been an unsafe street for a really long time. The proposals that have been put before the transportation board and before the community are not, cast in place concrete plans. They're quick build plans. They're plans that can be removed easily were Boston to come up with a different solution. And so I would urge you to not put this off many years in the interest of safety, and also particularly in the interest of the many pedestrians crossing. This is not just a bike plan. This is a plan for the whole road. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Zachary Yarrow, please.
Hi, my name is Zachary Yarrow. I also want to voice support for the not just the bike lanes, but as folks just said, the traffic calming effect that this infrastructure can have, whether or not there's a specifically designated bike lane. As I said, it's quick build, so it's possible to reconfigure if Boston's plans necessitate reconfiguration. But in the meantime, having those things like flex posts at corners so drivers have to take them slower and look out for, if there's not a bike lane, still look out for pedestrians and not use that as a second lane to cut around or a slip lane to take the turn at higher speed. That's really important. And at the proposed pedestrian islands, even if those don't happen, using tools like flex posts to narrow the roadway at the crosswalk so drivers have to slow down and pay a bit more attention to pedestrians has been proven in plenty of studies. Plenty of places this has already been implemented in the greater Boston area to improve pedestrian safety at those crossings. And so I want to encourage, even if there's not a formally designated bike lane, using these tools to keep drivers attentive at pedestrian crossings and traveling on Chestnut Hill Ave and making those turns safely and at safe speeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yarrow. Dan Murphy, let me just ask you a quick question, if I might. What's the funding status of this project, if any, right now?
Yeah, we do some Vision Zero funding, and we'll get our replenishment for streets money after July 1st. We basically spent out. We've got all our this year's money spent, but it would come in next year's budget, and we do some Vision Zero dollars as well.
Okay, so it would have to go to, would go in the CIP this town meeting?
No. I mean, we have the funding. We have funding to do it.
Okay, but you couldn't do it until, okay, I get you. Thank you.
Yep.
David Croop, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Croop. I'm the president of Biking Brookline. I know it's very late and I fully understand why you do want to move on. And I certainly wouldn't expect you to be able to address this issue in detail at this moment. But I do have a concern that by waiting for Boston and basically doing the road over the way it is now, we may run into the same issue, which is that the way we're doing it now doesn't comport with what Boston is going to do. So then we're going to have to change things anyway. I mean, I know one plan Boston is thinking about is a two-way cycle track on one side of the road. So that would not then go right into what we have already. And I'm not sure that the Transportation Division is getting enough direction this evening, and maybe it takes another meeting as to really, what part of this plan you do want to implement and how you are going to deal with Boston. Like maybe it's possible to get a commitment from Boston, before you do anything on the road. And I guess the other thing is I feel very strongly that one of the reasons why we like to do these complete streets improvement when we do a road repaving is because it's much less expensive to do the whole thing together. I am concerned that we will just reline the road the way it is, and 2 years from now when Boston comes along, is Brookline going to be committed to doing what it was going to do, now if we weren't worried about Boston. The other thing I want to say is I really do think that there has been a false narrative about how the community feels about this project. There is definitely a group of residents who are opposed to the bike lanes. I mean, I obviously am not going to disagree with that, but there has been very strong support for the bike lanes in the community also. It is incorrect to suggest that somehow the community is against this. All 15 town meeting members in Precinct 13 have signed a petition asking for the protected bike lanes. Biking Brookline has submitted a petition with over 750 signatures asking for the bike lanes. The group who are opposed to it, they wanted public participation and they got it. The town sent out a survey. About a third of the residents even took the effort to complete the survey. Clearly, most people on Chestnut Hill Avenue are not opposed to this, or they would have spoken up against it a long time ago. And the reason for that is probably because anytime you go down Chestnut Hill Avenue, there are only 4 or 5 cars parked on the street. So clearly, it is not something most residents rely on. So in short, I understand it's late. I understand you just want to, somehow get this very complicated issue off your plate. But I just hope the Transportation Division has been given enough guidance as to how this is going to work long term in terms of coordinating with Boston and in terms of making sure that the plan ultimately is implemented, that this doesn't become just a way that 2 years from now we say, oh, well, we redid the road 2 years ago, but we don't have any money left anymore, so we're not going to do the bicycle improvements. So I will leave you with that and hope the meeting ends soon for your sake. Thank you.
No, David, that's not the issue at all. And I hear exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And I appreciate all of the advocacy and all the work you do. I think the fact is there's just, we're not going to do this in 26 because right now there's no money. So the question then is, what do we do? And I think what we want to give the staff the leeway to do, or at least the direction to do, at least is what I want to do, is give them the leeway to, if it has to be repaved, go out there and repave it, tighten it up, and then we need to go do more process, quite frankly, and we need to sort of coordinate with the city. Coordinating with Boston is hard, as you know, especially now. They're going through a lot of changes over there. And I see it on the transit side all the time. I don't even know who to talk to half the time anymore now. So I take your point. I can't necessarily suggest to Dan Murphy that he speak with X person in Boston, because I don't know who that is right now. But I do hope that, my reputation at least is such that you have a little bit of trust in me that I will continue to work on this with folks in Boston who I do see on a regular basis. And we want to coordinate this. And if it ends up being a 2-way cycle track, that would be great. And that's, there's no hesitation on that, at least from me. It's really just a question of getting the timing right with the money and getting the timing right with the coordination.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Toby Silman from New York City. Oh my goodness.
Hi everyone, I'm Toby Silman, a recent BHS graduate and a member of the Bike Advisory Committee. It's been 1 year or so since we had our first meeting on this roadway, and as someone who biked to tennis practice at Elliott Street Park going via Chestnut Hill Ave for years, I was excited by the possibility for a complete streets redesign to this roadway. At BHS, in other words, until last spring, I co-led the Climate Justice Club. One of our main goals was to advocate for safe bike routes to the high school, since we saw that about a third of students and about 2/3 of teachers were driving to school, and we believed that biking and other more sustainable modes of transportation were the best option to pursue, and that creating a safe bike route to the high school was essential. I was surprised to see in the survey that something like only 16% of respondents said that they would bike more if Chestnut Hill Ave was given a bike lane. And to me, that just indicates that there are so many people that the survey and the rest of the public process isn't reaching. For example, students like me. And I should point out that last year when I was at the high school, our club was able to get nearly 100 student signatures for the Biking Brookline petition. As for next steps, I think given how Boston is, as a city, is so supportive of protected bike lanes, I don't think we would be moving too quickly by adding a bike lane. I think that obviously the quick build methods that Emily and others have brought up are viable, and in my personal opinion, I don't think repaving this road right now, as it is, I don't think that's going to make anyone's trip safer. Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. Toby wins the award for most engaged because he's in Manhattan right now. So well done, Toby. They need to give you more homework at Columbia, I think. Andy Fisher, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I think that David Krupp said it all, except for what Toby added, that nothing we do now is going to make it safer for bicyclists or pedestrians. And it makes much more sense not to spend the money now. I don't want to repeat what they're saying. I do want to thank you for articulating what makes sense to do. I think if anything is done now, it might be to put up some flex posts that would let the existing breakdown lane serve as a de facto bike lane and provide some safety and slow the traffic a little bit. I'm resuming physical therapy tomorrow for the injury I suffered when I was struck by a motorist that was speeding down the hill from Dean Road. I think that's one of the areas where the wide lanes encourage people subconsciously to speed. And as a victim of that, I still suffer from that. So I do take it personally. I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Brian Lai, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm another one of those precinct 13 town meeting members that signed the unanimous statement in favor of bike lanes. I'm sorry to hear that this board feels like the issue is new to them. Those of us in the neighborhood have been engaged with it for a long time and have seen many variations on the plans. But actually, Toby and Andy largely touched on the point I wanted to make, which is that if you just restripe this 40+ foot wide road, the crucial problem right now, as Andy has suffered all too much, is speeding cars. And if you just have paint out there, I don't see anything that's going to slow down those cars that still see a very wide space to speed down. Whereas if you do put in some flex posts for bike lanes, it doesn't seem all that permanent. And I think in addition to making it safer for bicyclists, it would make it safer for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. Emily's in the waiting room. Any additional comments tonight from the public? I don't see anyone raising a hand.
Yeah, this is Joe Casey. If I'm
Go ahead, Joe.
unmuted. Hi, how's it going? I live on Chestnut Avenue, and I think, well, some of the people are definitely in favor of the bike lanes. Needless to say, you have an agenda. Now, Dave is a strong supporter of the bike lane, as is Emily. Now, I'm sorry to hear that Andy got injured, and I take it's probably been recently getting hit on Chestnut Avenue, but up to this point, there hasn't been a lot of factual information saying that it's an unsafe road. Do people go down here too fast? Yes, but they're going to go fast no matter what, unless police, if you do some speed traps or something like that. One thing that's concerning somewhat as far as if, number one, the Bike Brookline, how many, they say they have 800 members. How many people are actually town residents? I don't know. But when we've had the in-person meetings at the town hall and at the school, all the neighbors that are opposed, they also bring up the fact that they're concerned about safety. No one on the Bike Advisory Committee has ever said, oh, we don't want to mess up the neighborhood. So they don't really care about the neighborhood. They just want it where there's definitely alternate routes that are not as heavily traveled. When you have 15 to 16,000 cars a day on a road, more cars, the chance something's going to go wrong. And unless you want to do something to make Chestnut Hill Avenue a toll road or something, it's going to continue 15 to 16,000. And to put the neighborhood at a disadvantage where you cannot park outside your house, with it's been doing that for the last century, to advocate for a few people, and maybe, I don't know how many people would use Chestnut Avenue if there were bike lanes versus if it is now. But, you know, with Emily and Dave, they have an agenda. So you can only take their word with a grain of salt, because they're trying to get to an end that they want, and they can not actually focus over the big picture what the neighborhood has to put up with. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from now, and I'm you know, so that's living on Chestnut Avenue. Been here for 40 years, and the family's been here for over 100 years. So that's where I'm coming from.
So no matter how long you've lived here, it doesn't matter. Everyone's voice is equal. I don't
agree.
appreciate the
I
ad
agree.
hominem attacks on people who are just trying to make public comments, Joe. That's not how we do this.
Well,
So next time you, excuse me, sir.
They,
Next time you want to comment, that's fine. I'd be happy to hear from you. But please don't make it personal. That's not what we do around here. You don't know what anyone's motivations are, sir. And that's just not fair, especially for people who can't sort of come back and say that. So I'm trying to run a clean meeting here, and I just don't appreciate that. Thanks for your comments. David, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brian, and to the whole board. David Trevette, Chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Speaking for myself, I first became aware of this whole process when the first potential redesign was presented to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Gosh, that must be a year ago. I don't remember the exact dates. And I've always been pleased that the pedestrian improvements that were included in every one of the plans make safer crossings do matter. This is what you're talking about, a very busy road. It makes sense to allow people a safe way to walk across the street. There are destinations that need to be gotten to, and they should be approachable in a safe way. The pedestrian islands that have been planned in various iterations are a benefit. And yes, I do have an agenda. I have an agenda to try to make this whole town safer for people who walk. I want to encourage walking. I think it's the most sustainable way of method of transit. And so, yeah, I will keep speaking up on behalf of pedestrians. And so I want those kinds of pedestrian benefits included in whatever the final version of this plan is. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, David. Paul Sainer, good to hear from you, sir. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brian. Paul Sainer, 46 Chestnut Hill Ave, Precinct 13, town meeting member, avid pedestrian who happens to be blind. So I'm disappointed that there's a consideration of redoing the road without traffic calming. I'm never gonna ride a bike up and down Chestnut Hill Ave, but I do cross over at Clinton Road on the east side, one house below my house on a frequent basis. And that intersection is more than 100 feet wide. And there had been a plan to narrow that down to about 40 feet. I don't know if that's, I don't know what the status of that is. And it sounds rather provincial to raise that, but I believe that's the same intersection that Andy Fisher collided with a car while he was on his bike recently. So, you know, I've been waiting for Boston to redo Lower Cleveland Circle since the Cleveland Circle redevelopment, the Circle Cinema redevelopment, which was like 14 years ago. You know, again, I'm disappointed that there's been actually a lot of public process around this. And I'm disappointed that there's not a more specific go forward plan on the part of the Transportation Board. I do appreciate you all continuing to think about this, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, any other comments before we come back to the board? Okay, so Richard, Len, Nancy, me, and Wendy. The staff is asking for direction. You've heard what I've suggested. We've had a couple of comments on it. Yeah, I wish this was I wish we had a more comprehensive plan that had broader support, but we don't right now. We're going to have to go through a pretty major public process if and when we do this again, and I think we'll be doing this again in about a year. But that's where I think we should, that's the direction that I think this board should provide, but I am just one member. So I'm curious to hear from you all if there's anything else you suggest we sort of ask the staff to do, or if I'm way out in left field, tell me, and then tell me what we should do differently. Wendy, go ahead, please.
So Dan Murphy mentioned that this would be Vision Zero money, and I'm curious whether there are requirements around what design Vision Zero money can be put to. It doesn't sound like what's being suggested is very Vision Zero. So, can you
Yeah,
speak to that?
I was saying if we do the pedestrian improvements and crossings, we could use Vision Zero money.
Okay.
Portion.
So Dan, can we do the pedestrian crossings separate from the larger project?
Well, what do you mean from the paving itself? We want to do all the pedestrian improvements and crossings first. You know.
I mean, I'd like to narrow Clinton Road if we can do nothing else.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we have all the pedestrian. We have the bump outs. We had initial cut and all of that I went through real quick, but we have that all. That was all part of the original plan. Was the pedestrian improvements got added in the crossings. So that could be part, and then we maybe I guess the trickier part is the bicycle improvements.
Yeah. I just feel like we've kind of we haven't done justice to the neighborhood in how we've rolled this out, frankly. And I take responsibility for that. That's on me. So I think what we have to do to be fair at this point is narrow. Here's what I would suggest we do. Here's what I would like. And again, this is just me. There's currently 5 options, I think, for bicycle accommodations, and then there's a series of pedestrian improvements. When this is next teed up to be funded, can you bring those 5 options here first? What I would like this board to then do is kind of narrow them down to 2 or 3 that we then present to the community, to the neighborhood. Safe in the knowledge that there's a lot of people that aren't going to support anything we suggest and tell us that no one speeds on Chestnut Hill Ave, right? Because hey, what do we know? Then we need to go do a very intensive public process. I was out at the Hayes School with you guys for 3 hours. We're going to have to do that sort of level of engagement, and we're going to have folks from this board go up there and do that. But we can't do it in 2026. We don't have the money right now, and I don't think we have the support. I understand that there's town meeting support, and I appreciate that, and we appreciate the funding that you give us. But this would just not, I don't think we've done this the Brookline way, frankly. And you know me, I love our processes here in Brookline, but it works and we have to do it for a reason. So that's my suggestion. Let's narrow down the bicycle accommodation options first. Let's get consensus on the pedestrian improvements from this board, and then go to the public with more of a fully baked package that we can present in 2027. And hopefully by then, I will have leaned on the good folks at BTD and Boston Transportation to at least share their initial thinking around what this is going to do. And hopefully by 2027, the politics over there will have unfrozen enough where they're actually doing projects again. So that's what Brian Kane thinks. But Nancy, go ahead.
I just want to be clear. Are you suggesting then that there are no pedestrian improvements that can be done in 2026? That the only thing that can be done is the paving of the street, repaving? I'm not clear.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to be respectful of your comments from earlier, Nancy, that we haven't really gone through this in a comprehensive manner. So since I've seen renderings, for me, it's in a different place than it is for the rest of the board. So I just think we're not ready to make a decision tonight on that level of specificity. I would love to do that and approve that tonight. I really would. But I don't think it's fair to ask the rest of the board to do that without having the information.
I wasn't suggesting that we would vote on anything.
Yep.
I thought that the staff is asking for guidance and direction. So, I mean, guidance would be, is there something that can be done, not tonight, but within 2026? Is it possible to do to approve some pedestrian improvements? It's just a question. I'm not, I just wonder, is that a possibility, or are you suggesting that there really is nothing that could be done in that time frame?
Well, what I'm hearing, and I'm going to ask Dan to tell me I'm wrong, is that the 2026 spring paving schedule is set and the money has been allocated.
Yeah.
So there may be a potential to do something out there in the fall of 2027.
Yep.
26 or 27?
I'm sorry, 26, if
The
we
fall of
can
26, yeah.
get our stuff together in time. I think it's more realistic that this is a spring 2027 construction commencement project. But Dan, tell me I'm wrong.
No, I think that's right. I mean, we certainly could look at, trying to get something in the fall, but we've got a lot on our plate now. And we still need to have our priorities discussion, because I don't know where this, maybe there's something else that's more higher priority. But we'll march whichever direction you want us to go. We can certainly narrow it down and try to hone in on a couple of options. But no, I think that's right. We're definitely busy for 26.
Could I hop in for 1 second here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, Sam.
Thank you, Ryan. Just to answer Nancy's question a little bit more, I know, as Dan was saying, the paving schedule is set, but Dan also said that if we do pedestrian improvements, we do want to get that done before paving. So yes, there is a world where these pedestrian improvements would not necessarily limit what could be installed in the future, and that could get done this year in advance of paving in 2027. Like that is, like, we could do the Clinton Road bump out, we could do the pedestrian islands in 2026 and pave in 2027. That is a reality. We have a sidewalk contractor who is already redoing the straight sections of sidewalk, the existing sidewalk that's out there. They are improving sections of sidewalk. And because we've had uncertainty on this project, we haven't told them any direction on the additional work around pedestrian improvements. But they would have the capability to do those if we got that direction.
So, okay, that's great, Sam. I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
if, after we have the prioritization discussion, because we really have to have that, but if at some point in April, May, June, if you folks could bring us a pedestrian improvement only plan, perhaps.
Yep.
Chestnut Hill Ave. It sounds like we might be able to get that approved and under construction at the end of this calendar year.
That would be possible.
And if not, then at least in the spring of 2027.
Yep.
Then we need to continue to have the bicycle accommodation discussion, both townwide and with the neighborhood specifically. God, I can't talk anymore. Richard.
We would just want to take into account and not box us in. The reason why I said we want to kind of obviously wait till we actually know the overall plan is if the cycle track ends up being something that we want to do that would impact the pedestrian islands, for example, right? Yeah. So I just, we just want to we don't want to box ourselves in on certain decisions that we haven't made yet, but obviously try to do things like the curb bump out at Clinton Road, for example, is something that, we could obviously tackle that would be part of the plan no matter what. So that's all. The only other thing in working on the Hayes safety improvement, parents tell me I have my kids go to Runkle because I don't want them crossing Chestnut Hill Ave and vice versa, so Chestnut Hill Ave is definitely a pedestrian safety issue that we got to address as soon as possible. But anything we can do to mitigate some of that threat that's there especially for the students and pedestrians in general would be great.
100%. Wendy, go ahead, please.
So I think I'm a little confused about what's happening. And part of it is about I don't really understand what the money situation. So for the last year or so, we've been talking about like this new process about prioritizing kind of, picking areas that we're going to work on, prioritizing traffic calming and kind of the highest need areas. And this has been on the list for a long time. So every time we get the updates, this is like high priority and there's meetings happening and there's designs being put forth. And then we see all of these designs. But now what I'm hearing is let's not do the designs. Let's do repaving. But now this latest piece is not repaving, but doing the pedestrians. But are we going to have money to come back to this? Like we also have somebody from Clyde Street who showed up tonight talking about Clyde Street, which is another, really, really busy street. And we basically have to say like, yes, we know you've waited 6 years for this, but get in line. And so this street has been in line and it's time. So if we do some minimal thing, are they going back to the end of the line? Like what's our guarantee here? And they are on the Green Routes plan. So if we're ignoring that, what's the point of the Green Routes plan? And we're talking about using Vision Zero money. So if we're going to do that, it seems to me we have to really think seriously about what that money is earmarked for and make sure that we're living up to that, the intention of that. So I'm like kind of confused about what the options are and how do we make sure that this isn't now going to be another 7-year wait and as we move on to some other street.
Very fair. So I think we're progressing currently on sort of parallel tracks. One is the sort of projects that are already in the hopper, right? Then there is the other set of projects that are out there that are neighborhood requests that might be Vision Zero, might fall into several buckets. What we as a board need to have that prioritization discussion about those projects that are not yet in the hopper and tee them up, prioritize them, put them on a list in a hierarchical order that says we, the transportation board, think we need to do this and then this and then this and then this. There concurrently, however, on this sort of other track are stuff that's already in the works. And yeah, it's not fair, but it's there. I don't believe if we simply repave Chestnut Hill Ave, it sort of goes to the bottom of the list. I think what would happen is it would then go into the prioritization discussion that gets updated every year that we would then have to sort of talk about. For instance, if situation changed and Boston came forward and said, we're going to build a two-way cycle track right up to your border, well, that might change our prioritization to say, okay, well, we have an opportunity because we have this other project going on. Let's pivot and do Chestnut Hill Ave now, or think about it. So yeah, it's not. I wish it was cleaner.
But isn't this already in the hopper? This is what I'm
Yeah.
I'm confused about. Like, why did we do this process if we were planning to wait for Boston? Like, I don't really understand how we got here and why we're pivoting now.
I don't either, Wendy.
Well, I mean, transportation department, like, can we get a
Yeah,
read on these?
I'll just say it came up as because we're also on a separate track. We're doing our pavement maintenance preservation program, and those are kind of the projects we come up with. And if the transportation board is set aside for complete streets or bike improvement projects that they prioritized, we'll pause it aside. And we were kind of in transition, but the goal is to get the priorities from you, and then we have other streets we're just gonna maintain and pave and move forward with. So it's really kind of two separate tracks, and this one kind of get caught in the middle, where initially this just came up. We have our consultant, and we prioritize all the streets in town based on the condition that we just want to pave them. And some roads we can't do everything all the time, all at once. So some roads will just get paved, but if there's 3 or 4 that are real priorities from the the Green Routes plan, from the complete streets, those rise at your direction, and we try to coordinate all that. And this one just kind of got caught in the middle a little bit, and that's the truth of it.
But there is talk always about taking advantage of the paving schedule, right? Like, we want to sort of be efficient, and so this is up for paving, and so we're rethinking about redesign. And so this is a major throughway. It's really fast. I think that the lanes are wider than the Boylston Street travel lanes, the state highway, right?
15, 16.
So it seems totally ridiculous to me to do nothing but pedestrian crossings if we're redoing this, if we're repaving this road. So I would not support that. I mean, yeah.
I think what's been suggested.
Yeah.
And again, sorry if this isn't clear, and I've actually seen far too many renderings of this, so I honestly forget where we're at right now on this. But what I think we want to do is repave it and narrow it with paint. So you're going to make very wide shoulders, much wider than what's out there currently. That would narrow the road and theoretically reduce the speeds. There's also a discussion about moving forward with the pedestrian improvements, especially at Clinton Road, which is incredibly wide, possibly in 2026. What I don't believe we can do in 2026 is any of the 4 or 5 proposed bicycle improvements that were shown briefly in Dan's thing that some of us have seen a lot more of. Because we need to coordinate those, particularly with Boston, especially if they do a two-way cycle track. And because we don't have the money to do those in 2026 right now.
And
we potentially sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If we're painting a wide shoulder, why can't we just paint a bike lane?
Well, we could. We don't necessarily have the neighborhood support to do it. And I don't believe we have gone through enough of the processes we need to go through with the neighborhood and with the broader community to get the level of support that we need from the community to get that approved by the select board, frankly.
Even though it's on the Green Routes plan.
Even though it's on the Green Routes plan, most of the folks who live on the street have never heard of the Green Routes plan. So in order to get this through, we would have to spend multiple public meetings at the Hayes School talking with the neighborhood and explaining why we're doing this. And we haven't done that yet. At least that's my opinion, Wendy. Maybe I'm too cautious.
Well, I guess I would suggest delaying a few months and doing that rather than paving and saying we're going to come back to it whenever we can. I mean, it just seems like such a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
To me, and I don't understand the point of the Green Routes plan if we don't. I mean, that's supposed to be our guiding document for these decisions as well.
It's one of them. One of the issues is we have many guiding documents, and sometimes they conflict.
Actually, I think most of our guiding documents probably point the same way on this one.
Probably. Richard.
Yeah. So, I mean, can we target like by this fall, between now and the fall, we get all the public process done with the plans and that we look to pave in the spring of 27, which it's in the CIP. And I would think in the next 6 months, should be enough time to be able to accomplish the public process. Or, you know, at least at the end of the year, by the end of the year, and that, you know, Dan and his team will have a fully loaded plan to basically execute in the spring, just as much as like what we're doing Hammond Street. We got that plan done, and you know, they're doing it at the tail end of the fiscal year. You know,
seems reasonable to me.
I mean, is that a time frame that, you know, everyone kind of feels like we can hit?
I don't think we can do anything in 2026. I don't think we have the money, and I don't think with the process. So I think
you mean fiscal 26, right? Because fiscal 27 starts July and goes through June. So that's the time frame we're talking about for 27.
But it has been suggested if we want to accelerate only the pedestrian improvements, we might be able to accelerate that. Now, maybe it doesn't make sense to do those separate from the rest of the projects. I don't know.
I think people want to do that just because like we don't have a schedule. I think if we can agree on somewhat of having a plan before, you know, by the year end, that Dan can schedule it for the spring to execute, I would think that would be able to work with everybody.
Yep.
Tell me I'm wrong.
So, Dan, how does that sound? Is it possible for us to, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong. I think we would like for you to come back to this board with the 5 or 6 bicycle improvement proposals and whatever the proposed pedestrian improvements are, and whatever the repaving plan is, to let us take a first pass at it, not to approve it, but to probably narrow down the bicycle accommodations.
Okay.
We would then go to Boston in an attempt to coordinate with them.
Yep.
And begin a lengthy neighborhood public process.
Okay.
In an attempt to get something in the ground in early 2027 construction season.
Okay. No, we can definitely we'll bring this back to you to look at everything, because you really this group hasn't seen. You saw what I had tonight, but that was way too quick. And obviously, you need time to think about it and absorb it and provide us direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Yes. The select board has asked planning to reach out to you guys to solicit feedback on the Center Street lots presentation that you'd heard.
Sorry. I forgot about that one.
And I just wanted you guys to kind of discuss whether you feel comfortable sending one joint letter, or if you want to send individual letters to the select board. I feel like there might be some differing opinions. I don't know if one letter is what you guys would want to do, or
so you folks remember this from last meeting? We got the Chris Dempsey presentation about the parking garage and the housing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm with Len on this one. I don't think we need a parking garage on Center Street, but that's just me. So I'm prepared to send that in my personal capacity to the select board. If folks agree, you can let me know and you can sign on. I'll share a draft if you want to see a draft, or you can send your own. I think that's the easiest thing at this point, unless you really want to do something more formal.
So based on the presentation, Brian, that they gave us,
Mhm.
it was kind of like a combination between housing option on public land in the parking lot and building a parking garage, right?
Yep. So how do we do this and not violate open meeting? That's a good question. Nancy, do you have an answer?
No, but I mean, just to say you don't want a parking garage, to me, I mean, whether or not I go along with that depends on whether you're, what are you doing with the rest of the parking lot? Are you taking away the parking? Because if you're taking away all of that parking to do other things, I mean, I think that's what the recommendation was. The reason for the parking garage was because they wanted to use the space where there's now parking to do other things. So, I mean, I would be very reluctant to take all that parking away and put nothing in its place. I mean, I think that would be very detrimental to the commercials business there. Again, it's kind of complicated to just be
Yes,
doing
it is.
this,
Straightforward, yeah.
off the cuff.
Yep. So I feel like we also kind of need a full-blown discussion on this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, do they need it now, or can we put that back on? It just, again, because it's so late, I don't think any of us are, I'm certainly not up for a full-blown
No.
discussion of this, but if there's time on the next meeting's agenda where we could review and, you know, at least have a better, even if we're just going to do individual letters, we'd have at least a discussion where you get input from others.
Okay, that sounds good. We can put it on the next agenda. Maybe Brian could share a draft letter and you can discuss whether you guys want to sign on to it or not, and that helps
When's
you
our next
open
meeting?
the 18th, and then we're probably gonna try and get another one in, so maybe the 18th and the 25th.
Yeah, I know that's not what you guys want to hear at 10:17 after a long meeting, but because of all the stuff that we just have so many things that need to come and are time sensitive. We haven't officially polled you all, but as Dan was about to say, we're looking at the 18th and the 20th. The 18th was the date that was previously set, but we're going to be looking at the 25th as a second date to just fit everything that needs to happen in order to get construction season underway.
Well, put everything complicated on the 18th because I'll be out of the country that day. So
we will put all the hard ones then. You got it.
Yeah.
I will be there.
I'm out the 25th, so.
All right, we'll be sending an email.
Of March, right? We're talking?
We'll be sending an email to make sure we have quorum.
Do we want to do the 11th if we have 2 people out?
Well, I thought Richard said the 25th and then Brian said the 18th, so.
Yeah.
I think
sorry.
want to do is strong.
Brian, which day are you out?
I'm sure anybody wants. I'm gone 11 to 21.
So he could do the 25th. So, and Richard said he's at the 25th. So we'll poll everyone and we'll see.
Sorry, I could do 11, but I'm leaving the 12th and I'm back the 21st. So yeah, send out the poll, please. But yeah, I agree with Nancy. We got a lot to do in the next couple months, guys. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yay! Without objection, we're adjourned. See you all soon. Good night.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.